Nice to see you tonight. Okay, we have YouTube coming up. I'll let you know when it's here. And met a couple more people. Um, so, all right. So we're on YouTube, and we have one watching so far. Good evening, Jordan, and
Evening.
Everyone, and Annabelle. Good evening. All right, so I'm Skip Conover, and we are doing a year-long study of the Tarot. We have a number of people that have good experience in the Tarot with us in the panel, and the discussion has been very rich in recent weeks, so I hope you enjoy it. Tonight we're going to discuss the Justice card. And so in order to get that going, I have a couple of more people I need to admit to the panel. We have Colleen here, which is great, and Manuela, and Susie is here again. Great. All right, so I'm gonna turn my camera on to gallery view so I can see everyone. So good evening, Colleen, nice to see you here today.
Nice to be here. My studio assistant, Jessica, is also joining us tonight.
Oh, terrific. And
excellent.
And we had, let's see, I've had a number of new people that I haven't heard from before who have sent doodles for next Saturday. So
right.
I haven't even gotten a chance to read their emails yet. So I'll do that after.
We have a few days. We have a few days, and we have a few events to happen too.
Yes, indeed. So anyway, what we're going to do, oh boy, we're getting more popular, everyone. So we've now got 12 in the panel. Wonderful.
Wow.
And so this is going to get to be quite a thing. It's become one of the most popular things on this YouTube channel. So, and Colleen and I were just talking about the fact that on this Saturday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. U.S. Eastern Standard Time, which would be for Nicole, that's 11 a.m. Sunday, your time. We're going to do this doodle project, and it's very interesting, and there's a video on the YouTube channel about it, so I'm not going to go into it in great detail tonight because we're here tonight to talk about the Tarot. And
can I ask you about that really quickly? Are there guidelines for how we are to share our doodles in that video?
You're to send them to me, and
okay.
I'm going to create a colossally sized PowerPoint, and then based on as much as I can on the order that they've come into me, I'm going to call on people to discuss their doodles, and so there should be 3 doodles from before the election and 1 after the election. If you haven't done them before the election, you can do a doodle tonight while we're talking, but then don't do another one until Wednesday.
No, I was going to send you mine tomorrow, and then pause.
Yeah, you can send them tomorrow, but don't do them tomorrow because
no. I just need to choose the 3 and JPEG them instead of they're mostly PDFs for the PowerPoint. So
yeah, it will be better if they're JPEG. Okay, all right. So to start off this evening on this Justice card, I want to read from the new model of the universe by P.D. Ouspensky. And as I do that, I'm going to share with you one Justice card, which comes from the so-called secret tarot. And I have a small copy of this card. Now, if I make this bigger, does that make it bigger?
It does.
It makes it quite pixelated, but anyway, this is the card. So it's one of the very old tarot decks, and I have only a mini version of that deck. So this card doesn't have great resolution, I presume, but just to have it on the screen as I read Mr. Ouspensky's comment. And he calls this card Truth. And so here's what he says. When I became possessed of the keys, had read the book, and understood the symbols, I was permitted to lift the veil of the temple and enter the inner sanctuary. And there I saw a woman with a gold crown and a purple mantle. In one hand, he obviously wasn't looking at this card. Okay, so in one hand, she held an uplifted sword, and in the other, a pair of scales. Seeing her, I trembled with fear, because her look was infinitely deep and terrible, and drew me like an abyss. Quote, "You are seeing truth," said the voice. "Everything is weighted in these scales. That sword is eternally lifted in defense of justice, and nothing can escape it. But why do you turn your eyes from the scales and the sword? Are you afraid? Yes, they deprive you of your last illusions. How will you live on earth without these illusions? You wish to see truth and know you see her, but you wish to see truth and now you see her. But remember what awaits a mortal when he has seen the goddess. He will never again be able to shut his eyes to what does not please him, as he has done hitherto. He will see truth perpetually, always, and in everything. Can you bear this? You have seen truth. Now you have to go further, even if you do not wish to. Okay, so that's what Ouspensky says, but I thought that was quite an ominous beginning for this card. And so let us, in 1 minute or less, go around the panel, and if you want to tell us something about your perspective of the truth card, then you can give us that and we'll get that started. So I'm going to go to Jordan first because he's the most experienced and has done his own deck. So Jordan.
So I appreciate his verbiage, and it is a little more ominous, but there's also, it really strikes the core of that is what it is out of justice. The sword up, the scales balance the other side. That image we were looking at is kind of Ace of Hearts-ish, Alice in Wonderland-y a bit, which to me is also very strong, potent, and intense.
Okay, great. Nick, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I would just make a comment on it being titled Justice and say that it is more of a justice that has to do with moving in accordance with nature and the laws of nature, and has very little to do with ethics or morals. Okay,
and Nick is going to give us a little talk about this after a bit, but I want to get a little farther into it first. Raquel, do you want to comment on the justice card?
A little bit. I think it's about also power and stillness, like equilibrium, but also a kind of power.
Okay, great. Nicole, do you want to comment?
Yeah. I was confused by what Nick said about it not being about ethics and morals, but anyway, maybe I misunderstood that. But,
okay, well, I'm not saying I agree with Nick entirely on that.
And to distinguish, though,
That is-
he was actually saying natural balance, the laws of nature, rather than our laws. So rather than tort law, he was looking at nature.
Yeah, I missed that. Sorry. Yeah. Just what comes through, just also from looking at that card, is that it's feminine. It was a female.
Yes.
I don't know. That was interesting in that, yeah, and that it's to do with nature rather than what we get in the Western culture, which is more about power and.
Yeah,
I would
I don't necessarily agree with that point, but we
Yeah.
can,
Yeah.
Nick has his point of view, and he's going to talk to us in more detail about it shortly. Okay,
Yeah.
so Colleen, how about you? Do you have some thoughts? We have to get you on unmute. We cannot hear you, Colleen. Link our registrations, which would bring you into our. I guess you're listening to something, so let me come back to you. Panels and speak with me directly or to any of our feature speakers. We're doing several projects right now. Last night,
Colleen,
could you mute your mic, because somehow we're getting playback from you. And with my partner in the there. Okay. I apologize for that, Colleen, but somehow we're getting feedback from your computer right now. Annabelle, do you want to comment on the Justice card?
Yeah, I wanted to say something about what Uspensky said, more than the card itself, which is that his words about the goddess and seeing the goddess and then you can't go back again reminded me of two Irish folk songs. And one of them has to do with when the clay heel woos he just loses his humanity once he has had the vision of the goddess, once he has seen that. And that's that's a song called Raglan Road, but it has to do with dawning, right? This dawning of spring. It's a kind of cycle, and then all through the fall and the winter, and then it's just that sort of death in the goddess. But it has to do with that lifting the veil, seeing it for what it is, and then realizing that the humanity is no match for the goddess.
Great.
Yeah.
Good comment.
There have been thoughts I've had that related to folk music and folk tales in relation to some of the cards, but this Uspensky statement was the most direct.
Okay, terrific. Manuela, do you want to say something about the Justice card? If you don't wish to speak, you don't have to.
No.
Okay, we'll move on then.
Christian.
Christian, do you want to say anything about the Justice card? Christian Ardila. Okay, I guess not. Okay,
I'm actually new to this whole thing. I'm actually new to tarot, so I don't have no knowledge about it at all.
Okay, fine. Hang in there.
I'm not gonna be able to stick around for so long just because I have to study for this test. But
right. So it's like a roller coaster. You have to hold on, and it's a thrill ride. So, Idris, do you have any comment on the Justice card?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I would say, turn on my video. Whenever a Justice card has come out, it is an assurance as well as a warning. The assurance is if I do all the things correctly as the demand of the task in front of me is requiring, if I do my part, things will turn out really healthy and according to expectations. It
Uh-huh.
also has a little bit of warning on the side that you will meet with no mercy. If there's any shortcoming or something, you will pay the price. And it is gonna be, it's almost like dealing with a complete stranger.
Mhm.
So you have to be on your sharpest side and the best edge, and things will be fine.
Yep.
And I have opened a card before an event or before meeting a person, and then I have come back home after the whole thing is over and tried to reevaluate or evaluate what the card meant. And this is what I have received from Justice card.
Okay, and so for a tantalizer for everyone for later on, I'm at the end of this evening, or at least at the end of 2 hours, let's say, whether it's the end of this evening or not, I'm going to ask everyone to draw one card from a deck, any deck, and tell us what it is to prepare us for what's going to be tomorrow. So everybody gets to draw one card, and we'll see what it means to us. So Samantha, you're last aboard, and so we are going around saying 1 minute's worth on what we think about the Justice card, and you haven't heard anything what any of us said. So yours is.
I did hear what I don't know
Adris.
Adris.
Yeah.
I did hear what Adris said.
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd like to. I might be more of an observer today. I'm not sure yet.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just hang in there then.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I voted though, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Yay.
All right. So the next thing I want to do is our traditional reading of Stephen Heller's piece, which is in his book called The Fool's Pilgrimage. And Stephen Heller is now in his early 90s, but he's quite knowledgeable about these things. So I'm just going to read through what he says, and I don't seem to have, here we are. Okay, so the reason we do this each week is that the Tarot is closely related to the Kabbalah. Last week we had Nick tell us about the Kabbalah. And so what is in Stephen Heller's page here on justice is the Kabbalah. And he has highlighted the path between Tifereth and Geburah, I believe, Tifereth and Geburah, and which is called Lamed. And I'm only highlighting that to say we're coming back to this next year after we get through a full deck. Then we're going to come back to the Kabbalah and also astrology and how they relate to these things. And what Stephen has on his page here, this card is the Justice card from the Rider-Waite-Colman Deck. And so I'll just read what he says here. The figure of justice is seated in a position of balance between the two pillars of the polar opposites. She is divine justice, having her eyes unveiled, rather than human justice, which is blind. Her sword is lifted as a symbol of her potential severity. In her left hand, she holds the scales of balanced judgment. To the open eyes of this figure, all things are revealed, and the sword of karma in her right hand will inevitably smite all imperfection and selfishness. Past and present are both weighed in the golden scales, and if the karmic weight is in balance, progress is assured for the pilgrim. Impartial, unbending, yet ultimately beneficent is the image conveyed by this arcanum. Now, a couple things I'm going to mention. Some of the decks that I'm going to show you tonight have justice with a blindfold, but I think it's quite an interesting distinction that this is the goddess and not a physical world woman, and so some of the decks don't get that distinction. And one other thing I'll point out is that Heller refers to karma here. And last week, when I mentioned this relates to karma, Jordan reacted to my comment. And so later on, I want Jordan to tell us why he reacted, but not now. Okay.
Skip,
Reading,
I think
what?
before we move too far away from this, it would be a good time for me to show the group what I have, just because it plays into everything that you just stated. So just before we move too far away from this, I think it would fit in with this portion nicely.
You're next. I just want to finish reading
Yeah.
Heller's thing, and then we'll come to you. Okay, so Lamed, the 22nd path from Tiphereth to Geburah. Keynote: from the way station of balanced beauty, we move to the principle of severity. And while so doing, the karmic forces of purification subject us to a thorough process of judgment. Motto: be not deceived, God is not mocked, for whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. And the biblical passage that's related to this is Galatians 6:7. And then he has a meditation. I ask for clarity of judgment so that I may give a clear account of my motives and actions. As I proceed on the path from manhood to godhood, I must be aware of all my motives and intentions. I shall weigh the results of the law of causation, and I shall walk within the law. Though I have seen the royal beauty and felt the love of the king, I am not above the law. Yea, lest I abide within the law, all my efforts will come to naught. The king is good, but he is also just. May I follow his command, and the sword of his justice will defend and uphold me unto the glorious end. Okay, so that's Stephen Heller. And now, Nick, go ahead. I'm going to put you on speaker view, and you can share your screen.
Okay. So let's see here. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so when I was thinking about this card, just a few things came up, and I wanted to try to make the point, but I felt like if I didn't have some visual representation for the point that I was trying to make, something would probably be amiss. So I came up with just a little something. So I was reading some Jung, and where he talks about in Collected Work Volume 8, the spirit instinct antithesis seemed relevant to the interplay of these two cards. So I arranged the cards in a way where the 22 cards are around in a circle, but the 0 card is at the very top and the 11th card is at the very bottom. And then that leaves 20 cards, each divided into a group of 5 around 4 quadrants. So it sets up this axis in the center between the Fool card and the Justice card at the bottom. And so just a bit about that really quick. I wrote, Justice is the lowest point in the round of the tarot sequence. Fool is the zenith, the highest point, and Justice is the nadir, the lowest point. The Fool is the Hebrew letter Aleph and has its pictograph the ox, which means spirit or breath. As such, it is the unbridled life force that animates all things, the inexhaustible beast of burden. The Justice card has the letter Lamed assigned to it. which has for its pictograph the ox goad. You can see how these two symbols are connected to one another already. This means that halfway around the sequence of unfoldment, the life force must be prodded or goaded along to complete its round. And then I just talk about how I arrange these cards at the bottom there. So those two cards seem to be two poles of one thing. And more about that, I said, this marks the descent of spirit into matter and the point at which we must redeem the affective energy contained in the instincts. This axis makes clear the point that the two poles on the axis of the Fool and Justice card are two poles of the same continuum. We may perceive them as something separate, but in truth they are but two extremes of the same thing. To cut or discriminate through this illusion is the meaning of the sword in the Justice card, and to know the balance and constant mediation between these two poles is the meaning of the scales of justice. It is not justice in a moral sense of the word, but justice in the sense of moving with the laws of nature and natural rhythms of which our instincts are part and parcel. On this topic, Jung says, all psychic processes whose energies are not under conscious control are instinctive. Thus, affects are as much instinctive processes as they are feeling processes. Psychic processes, which under ordinary circumstances are the functions of the will and thus entirely under conscious control, but can, in abnormal circumstances, become instinctive processes when supplied with unconscious energy. Psychic processes seem to be balances of energy flowing between spirit and instinct, though the question of whether a process is to be described as spiritual or instinctual remains shrouded in darkness. Psychic processes therefore behave like a scale along which consciousness slides. At one moment, it finds itself in the vicinity of instinct and falls under its influence. At another, it slides along to the other end where spirit predominates and even assimilates the instinctual processes most opposed to it. So, going back, it just seemed like this axis, with the top being spirit and the bottom being instinct and moving with the laws of nature, seemed to be a pretty apt visual representation for that concept.
Nicholas, may I ask a question
Yeah.
at this time? Could you, I think it was, can you switch to the other visual? The one before this, please?
This is the only visual.
Sorry, the one you showed after this one in order.
Just the slide?
Third. Yeah, the slide. Thank you. So let me find it because I had a specific question. I think it was just about, could you elaborate on the following point, which, hold please.
Okay.
One moment it finds. Yeah, so I understand the concept of consciousness sliding. That second sentence, I would like to hear what you mean a little more. Spirit predominating to me means it takes precedence over the intellectual, Freudian slip, instinctual processes, but then assimilating seems more like it's incorporating. Am I getting that correct in terms of what you actually mean by that? I would like to hear maybe in more common terms, but just what does that mean to you? What does it mean, but also what does it mean?
Yeah, well, first off, these are not my words. So this is Carl Jung talking about the spirit instinct antithesis and how he's laying out essentially a dichotomy between these two concepts. But he's also making the point that the instincts are subordinate to the spirit.
And I'm assuming by instinct he's referring to the animal, more of the animal instincts.
I believe so, but also in the top where he says essentially that all conscious psychic processes are under control of the will. And if they fall out of control under the will, they then go below the threshold of consciousness, sink down into the unconscious, and have this affective energy where they have an unconscious control exerting on us. So when he says that they behave like a scale along which consciousness slides, at one moment in the vicinity of instinct, and then at the other in spirit. I don't think he's saying that one or the other is necessarily better, but that they're just two poles of the same thing, and that to polarize on either one would result in one-sidedness.
And thank you for that. And specifically the part about where spirit predominates and even assimilates the instinctual processes most opposed to it. That's the part where I get a little confused. I understand what predominates means, I believe, and assimilates, but I'm just wondering if you can elaborate or maybe personalize, like what do you think that means?
Well, I think it's an inductive process that brings the instinctual lower base processes back up around to itself. If they're subordinate, then the superordinate concept has to be the spirit above it. And if you think about it in terms of this circular pattern here, and, you know, the instincts are down here on the justice card at the very bottom. And then if you think about setting out from the top, going around clockwise, the path of induction would then be moving back up and assimilating those processes back into yourself at the top.
So what I'm hearing is, and I can wrap up shortly because I know I want to give you like proper time. I know we also have another slide, but what I'm hearing is predominates means, and I haven't looked it up in Webster's recently, but my understanding of it is that it dominates before, that's more literal, but that basically it's you said superordinate, which is a word I've never actually heard before tonight, but you know, it dominates essentially, right? And
yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah, it's the beginning and the end.
Yeah. But so I think what he's saying, the sentence structure was interesting because it wasn't like it wasn't like a parallel analogy where basically I'm trying to say this in a simple terms. Basically, spirit predominates instincts as well as includes it. That's what I hear it saying, that spirit contains instinct, but it goes beyond, like saying God is above. I shouldn't have it in quotation marks. Lightning bolt. No, I'm kidding. My God doesn't function that way. But basically, God is above us, but also we are a part of God. So God is in our hearts and beyond. That's my understanding.
Can I have an input? I was reading volume 16, Practice of Psychotherapy and Assimilation, and also definition of unconscious is given in 2 paragraphs.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really a good point where Jung's own writing might help us. May I?
Yeah. Yes, of course.
Okay, thanks. So it's volume 16 of the collected works, Practice of Psychotherapy. It is page 152 and 153, and I'll start with paragraph 327, skip 1, and then paragraph 329. Carl Jung writes, assimilation in this sense means mutual penetration of conscious and unconscious, and not, as is commonly taught and practiced, a one-sided evaluation, interpretation, and deformation of unconscious contents by the conscious mind. As to the value and significance of unconscious contents in general, very mistaken views are current. It is well known that the Freudian school presents the unconscious in a thoroughly negative light, much as it regards primitive man as little better than a monster. Its nursery tales about the terrible old man of the tribe and its teachings about the infantile, perverse, criminal unconscious have led people to make a dangerous ogre out of something perfectly natural, as if all that is good, reasonable, worthwhile, and beautiful had taken up its abode in the conscious mind! ! Have the horrors of the World War done nothing to open our eyes so that we still cannot see that the conscious mind is even more devilish and perverse than the naturalness of the unconscious? A little bit more explanation, but I'm going to skip a paragraph. And now he speaks about what you are discussing about the instincts, or the other pole where it's not conscious. In paragraph 329, Carl Jung writes, the unconscious is not a demoniacal monster, but a natural entity which, as far as moral sense, aesthetic taste, and intellectual judgment go, is completely neutral. It only becomes dangerous when our conscious attitude to it is hopelessly wrong. To the degree that you repress it, its danger increases. But the moment the patient begins to assimilate contents that were previously unconscious, its danger diminishes. The dissociation of personality, the anxious division of the daytime and the nighttime sides of the psyche cease with progressive assimilation. What my critics fear, the overwhelming of the conscious mind by the unconscious, is far more likely to ensue when the unconscious is excluded from life by being repressed, falsely interpreted, and depreciated. That's the end.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was a great addition. Thank you.
Okay. And Nick, before you leave this page, let me just mention that there's a tradition in Jungian psychology that you also enter the paragraph number. The reason for that is that Jung has been translated all over the world and in multiple editions. And so if we don't have, so having a page number is not useful. And so we have to have the paragraph number that's referred to. And so when you put volume 8, that just points to the entire book.
I think it's paragraph 407.
Okay, that's good. So
I would go ahead.
So the point is, though, that when you cite Jung, please do cite the paragraph number as well.
Okay.
And let's let Nick finish, Jordan, before you.
Yeah, I've just got one more short little slide here, and it just picks up on what you were saying about justice being blind and all of that. So justice, the card, has to do with Themis and Nemesis, and also Themis's daughter, Dike. So Themis was the mother of the Greek goddess Dike, justice, and was herself a lady of justice. The sister of Themis was Nemesis, blind and impartial justice, which if Themis was disregarded would bring about just and wrathful retribution. If the natural but not necessarily moral law of Themis and Dike is disregarded via hubris, the Nemesis will visit us unfavorably with a blind justice, hence the saying, justice is blind.
Whoa.
It's good to know.
My brain just went.
So that's the end of what I have, but
Thank you, Nick.
Yeah, of course.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Nick, that's a wonderful Nick, that's a wonderful synopsis. And I'm glad you kind of really hawked into those points, because rather than a parallel analogy, which would be dualistic, Jung is presenting this whole piece as one. And if you then take your 4 quadrants and just do as above, so below, you have spirit above and instinct below. And then right at the line, above the line, you would have intellect. And then imagination, or the imagination noose would be below, or the noose, right? Noose, and then also, or Newman's, and then thonic below. So what's interesting to me is the whole as above, so below there, where you have that, you mentioned the sliding scale, the spectrum. And when you're at the line, you have the thonic numinosity, the balance of self, where you're open to the unconscious as well as conscious of what you're open to that you don't know. So it was a really good example. And I'm glad Idris read that additional passage too, because that specifically applies even to the blindfold, where if there's a blindfold, there's a not affected by circumstances quality of justice, where it is what it is. And if there's not a blindfold, then the veils have been lifted and all things are. So again, I love that you said no mercy, because I always put it as will receive no quarter, because it is what it is. So what's interesting to me, Skip, when you had the book open with Lamed and the shape of the Hebraic character, I hadn't seen this before, but if you see the Lamed character, it's a little bit like the astrological symbol of Saturn, but Saturn would almost be the throne. But if I look at the Lamed, it's the points of contacts of the goddess to the throne, the goddess in justice, Pallas Athena, to the throne.
I think in Hebrew it's supposed to be the ox, isn't it?
Well, I see
No.
the ox goad, but
Yeah,
there's also
Aleph is the
path.
ox, and justice is the ox goad, which why I was saying. That's
Right.
why I was saying that at 0, it's like spirit going halfway around the circle, and then at
Right.
the 11th card, it has to be goaded. The life force has to be prodded on to finish its round.
Right. And what's interesting to me is that ox goad as one piece, but then the shape of the Lamed, if you were sitting on that throne, on a chair, those are the points of contact, and even the curve around of the Lamed being the veil of the dress or the robe, that to me just goes to the other side. That is not the ox goad, that is the is what it is justice piece. That both and together as one.
Okay, so Jordan, as long as you have the floor, I'd like you to comment on your reaction to when I said this was about karma last week. I'd like to hear what you have to say about that. And then finally, I'm going to give a little story from real life about justice per se.
Would that be the toot about karma being a crowd control device?
No, I simply said that this card is about karma, and you reacted and so it said something like, no, it isn't, or something like that.
I think karma's a little too lineage level concept for justice to apply.
What do you mean by lineage? Can you please
History.
define? Are you say lineage? You mean lineage?
It's lineage. Yeah, lineage.
But also, like another question, what really karma? What does that really mean in this card? You know.
That's what I'm saying. I find the lineage, if you want to that pronunciation or lineage, as I'm from Texas, so we always do that. I find that vastness of a duration of time would be an affect or an influence on justice, whereas justice is more of a singularity, and its density of no quarter, no mercy. And I find that then karma would then have almost like premeditated or preordained consequences that are going to come forward. Whereas this concept would seem to me to present as to what is right here. All of its history may be within what's right there, but I don't feel that the karmic piece, I think the connection is tenuous at best, I think is why I was reacting, because it feels that it's not as center driven, for example, as the oneness that Jung's talking about, that Nicholas has brought up and Idris read as well.
Okay, I don't agree with you.
Cool.
Because as you know, we've talked about the eternal moment, and this is the eternal moment, and every tarot reading is the eternal moment, and it's the culmination of everything that's come before and everything that will go thereafter. And
I would fully agree, actually.
And that's what karma is. What goes around comes around. The universe is in balance. The universe is in balance. And so in my life experience, I've been wronged by others many times. And what I've learned is that I never have to do anything to get revenge, because karma takes care of it for me.
And that's and I follow right along with that. I find, to me, there's just a piece of that's responsibility with a capital R, and I have enough responsibility to not take responsibility for things that are not my own. So there's this aspect of karma to me of things that happened when I wasn't even alive yet.
Sure.
And so
definitely.
Now the causative natural influence is there, and I guess Jung speaks to this in synchronicity and acausal principle book. That's not all the whole title, not the whole title, but I just find that eternal moment, or I call it the perpetual present. I couldn't agree more. It's the confluence of the past and the future, It's everything that's ever had happened and will happen right now. And that's the only thing there is.
Well, karma chases you to the fourth generation. Okay. And
Oh. I'm sorry. I should mute myself until I'm talking.
right. And
I have a question. I'll save it though. Go ahead, Skip.
well, and so you know, we don't know, for example, what the president's karma will be tomorrow and what our karma is tomorrow. And so whatever it is, whatever his karma is and whatever our karma is, it's going to follow us to the fourth generation. And, you know,
I haven't heard that. And that's an interesting concept because it takes it to the great grandfather,
well,
grandmother.
you don't live with a Buddhist Lama. I do. Okay.
Oh, really? Are you talking about your wife?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, wait. I want to get ground. Skip, were you feeling complete on that?
Well, I'm complete on that if Jordan is, but I do want to give, I want to point out to everyone that as we're talking, I'm shuffling my Rider-Waite deck and preparing for 10 o'clock. And also, I do have a final example to give of justice and how it works.
And I think that the defense will rest. I think the karma piece itself is large enough and both applicable and as well inapplicable in subjective and objective ways that I think that it's a larger conversation that I think deserves a lot more attention. And so I appreciate that it's come up. And I think I'd respectfully say I would agree that I'll pause.
Yeah. I would like to contribute to the conversation, but I'm okay with going after you because I want to try to be concise or like integrate what y'all are talking about. But I just wanted to put in my bid to contribute.
Well, okay. All right. So let me give you my example. First of all, I do believe that the justice card applies to our physical justice system as well as instinct. And if you're in a reading, and I presume Jordan and others would concur with me that if the issue at hand relates to something that's very definitely a question of the physical world, it could easily come up that there is a litigation or something like that involved in a reading. And so there's no doubt that that's the truth. So I'll just give you an example. First of all, do you remember the Borg from Star Trek, The Next Generation, where
yes.
There was this cube flying around the world and it kept saying, you will be assimilated, right? And we've been talking about assimilation in this conversation. So I fought a lawsuit for 9 years, essentially doing what our president does in his 4,000 lawsuits. Fortunately, I only had one, and I was able to defend myself. But that came to a culmination in a particular day when I was before a judge, and the judge ordered me to discontinue my lawsuit. And this is after I'd been to the Court of Appeals of Maryland 5 times and the U.S. Supreme Court once, and I had never been able to have my case heard before a trier of fact. And this judge ordered me to discontinue. Okay, now I asked him the question, am I allowed to appeal this order? And he said, yes. And so then I did not appeal the order. And so from his point of view, I was assimilated in the so-called system. Okay. But so he thinks it's over. I don't think it's over. Okay. And that's a matter of karma. And so the judges that denied me my right to a trial by a jury of my peers, all of them, and there were many, I still believe that they were in the wrong, and they've actually made my case confidential, so people can't read my case.
I want to know about this.
In the public record.
Well, then that is even that.
This is resonating big time for me. Keep going.
Yeah, and even that,
Oh.
even the veiling, to me, the veiling of your case actually is almost a fact of its truth.
Yeah,
Ooh.
absolutely. I mean, I absolutely. And anyway, there were a bunch of events in that were just unbelievable. Like, you probably remember scenes in movies where two guys are online and they're fighting with each other because they're trying to get information before it's removed and various stuff like that. And that actually happened to me. So it was quite an experience. But in any case,
What type of computer were you on? Was this like 2000s when computers were?
I was on a shared IBM PC that was in the law library at the Court of Special Appeals of Maryland when this was happening, and literally the people were trying to cover their tracks on how they had defrauded me, and the court had allowed me to be defrauded.
Wow.
And I called them on it, and I ran one of the judges up for ethical violations, but never it did not endear me to the Maryland judiciary, and they swept it under the rug finally.
Well, and actually you make a great point there about it being a legal system rather than a justice system.
Well, can I jump in here?
Sure.
What I'd like to, Nicholas, can you put up, or whoever has the power to at this point, show the justice side by side with the Two of Swords, please?
I can if I'm still able. Let's see.
Yeah.
Sure you are.
Yeah.
Because the visual will help my thought process to be
Yeah. Can you see it?
clear. Yes, thank you. So, what occurred to me, that concept of justice being blind, okay, with the Greek mythology. So there's justice, and there's Themis was the mother of justice. Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
Well,
So,
I mean,
One is the
Themis-
goddess and one is a human being.
Well,
The
Dyke
mother
was,
of the
Dyke was the
Greek-
daughter of Themis,
yes,
and Themis and Nemesis are sisters.
they're sisters.
Yeah.
Oh, for some reason, that's interesting. Okay, anyway. Well, I knew they were siblings, but what I was going to say is that the concept, I used to read I thought justice was blind because justice sees no, I thought it was representative somehow of innocence, or, that was like the tone of that I saw that.
Justice has to pretend it's blind in the human human context, in the physical manifestation. But the reality is the true justice is not blind and is the goddess, and it will follow you to the fourth generation.
Well, that's what maybe you and I need to have a continued conversation about the fourth generation thing, but that's interesting because my great fathers. So my great grandfather, right? I said that right? Dad.
Right.
he was born into slavery. And I mentioned this last time, and I have the documents. He inspired a poem that was written by John Greenleaf Whittier. And I think about that because I have, you know, an emotional connection to that time, and like, and the things that even my dad has been through, you know, and sometimes I experience things as if it's happening to myself, which is not always fun. But anyway, I don't want to talk about that exactly right now, although it's related. What I wanted to talk about is I was thinking about, okay, so the Justice card on the left here, that's the major arcana.
Yes.
And that would be either Themis or Dyke, depending on how you choose to interpret it, is how I see it. And then there's Nemesis, which would be the Two of Swords. Right. So that blew my mind alone, but I guess I'm trying to integrate something out loud here. So thanks guys for your patience. The idea that justice not being blind, that's higher up. That's a higher concept, that we don't have to be blind to be just. And I want to give an example, and then I want to come back to the Two of Swords before what I say incites a riot, a philosophical riot. What I want to say is, it's like trying to have a conversation around racism, or, you know, because my mother is white, right? And my dad's black. So my mother's family, I've had some conversations with them, and not just in my mother's family, but there's this concept of, you guys might have heard of white sensitivity, right? Where the attempt to engage in this topic and talk about facts, talk about matters of justice, what is centered instead of the fact ends up being the fragility of the fourth generation, right? Because it's this concept of, and I have to be open about this because this is my experience with race, you know, there's a duality in it, but basically the concept of what should be centered when we talk about justice isn't the sensitivity of the people who are inheritors of the privilege. You know what I mean? Like, it's like that idea, like I relate to what Jordan's saying about you shouldn't have to pay for the sins of your father, is what I heard in what you said, Jordan. I'm not sure if that was your intention, but at the same time, myself included, we inherit the benefits. If we've wrongly inherited something from the former generations as well, we still, I don't mean in a retribution kind of way, like a revenge kind of way, but you deal with the reality of it. You know what I mean? Just like I deal with the reality of the duality of having slaves in my lineage, but also being related to the people who own them. I myself have a certain level of privilege because I'm fairer skinned, that darker skinned people, and I've experienced like having my eyes open to that, like being asked for my receipt at a store to prove I bought food. And the only time I've ever been asked that was when I was with a darker skinned Black woman. So that just was like, oh my goodness, like, you know, so that's an example. So I'm kind of tangenting, but I want to come back and just say that what I was talking about blindness is because when I've attempted to have conversations about racism, with, say, someone in my family, it was my mom's best friend, and I remember her, and I cited a historical fact. I made a reference to slavery, and I said, well, it was like how many centuries long? I forget what the reference was. I was like 14 at the time. And she called me militant, but I was literally just saying a fact. I wasn't even, and anyway, and then she was like, well, you know me, I'm colorblind. And I feel like that, acting as if we're blind to these things that are obvious, like, it's like, are you literally, oh, so you're actually blind, you know, like we don't see, we don't have discernment.
Nick, could you take down your share screen so that we can see everyone?
Oh, I was just saying that acting as if you're blind, basically, it kind of lets you off the hook to have important conversations about justice. And on the other hand, this idea of air, of swords representing air and being in the realm of thought, justice having two swords, it's like the concept of, if I were reading this in tarot with someone, if a two of swords came up, especially if I was doing it from a playing card deck, I'd make it simple and be like, well, you have a choice about how you're gonna think, okay? Because I understand swords represent the realm of thought and air, although some consider it fire, but I'm just gonna go with the thought. But it's that idea of a person who is double-minded, can't really get anything done, you know, and you might be sort of avoiding the responsibility of your choice of using will. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
To speak actually directly to that last point, and actually I think it will loop it back in, the justice card has no blindfold. The veil has been lifted.
Right.
And but that is all seeing. And that is all seeing within and all seeing about. The two of swords has the blindfold not to be blind. There is the decision, but the blindfold then engages or brings the participation mystique on the inner world. It goes into the mind movie. Then that's the entertaining of the choices. So there becomes actually a very dynamic aspect to the air or mental thoughts, swords in the two. One in the crossing, and if it's not the crossing, it's the quadrants like this, it has been put in motion. So there is then an act of justice that is in formation rather than in the form of a decision.
I mean, I think it's also relevant to point out that they're kind of, I wouldn't say that they're exactly two sides of the same coin, but I mean, they are sisters. And it's like justice symbolizes a higher cosmic order type of justice. And if you are negligent of that type of justice, then the justice that reinforces that higher justice is blind and wrathful.
Yes,
Okay.
and that's I'll just say this and pass the ball or whatever. But basically, that I just see the justice being it's a more evolved version. It's on that scale of consciousness than the two of swords. I mean, the two of swords, sometimes, I mean, we're human once again, so we might err. You know, it's like when if Skip decided to go renegade and you know, pull a renegade samurai type of thing, like, and just like go to those people and like, you know, take a sword to them.
Trickster's type of thing.
Take a sword to them or something, then that would be blind. That would be blind.
No, I have no need to do that because karma takes care of it.
Because you have faith in the higher order. So that's what that's how I see it. More like when we think we need to take things into our own hands.
Okay, we have 3 questions from other people outside of this group. One within the group and 2 outside that I'd like to address. So let me go to this question that Patricia raised, which is, I have more like a question. I wonder why justice, it's a woman, when in reality, women have been kept under a male ruling more than often. Any thoughts about that in response to that?
I would just like to say, time and time again, like we keep getting caught on gender issues, and biology has nothing to do with the tarot. I mean, I personally am just kind of, we keep orbiting around that. I don't know that is relevant.
I think that's actually, hold on one, if you wouldn't mind.
Respect, I feel that like there might be some blind spots, and I say that with respect, Brother Lawrence, you know, because you experience the world as a man. I'm assuming that's how you identify, right? So I think.
No, actually, no.
Oh, okay. Well, then that just shows you I was being blind.
There's a little caveat, sorry to interrupt, but women carry the power of living force by choosing their mate. So in every generation, doesn't matter which group of men are more powerful or powerless, which woman chooses which man to be the father of the children will actually allow that generation of men to have children in the next
I-
generation.
I
So
must
women
be-
still have the inherent biological power over the next generation.
I must speak. Thank you. And thank you. That's very helpful. Okay. Now I'm going to integrate a few things. I'm going to speak quickly so I don't get lost. First of all, Nicholas, I'm sorry for making that assumption. I want to say that. And second of all, what I want to say is I think there's a way to integrate what you just said, Nicholas, with what Patricia said in the comments, which is about the energy, the male and female energy. And there's also a lot of androgynous characters in tarot as well. So anyway, I have respect for,
Well, and Edward Edinger said one thing that was important that's related to this, which is that, well, two things. One, Mother Nature is imperious and she's the boss.
Mm-hmm. Well,
and that's number one. And the other is that the universe is in balance.
Yes.
Right? And that's what karma is about.
I think that is the female energy, the feminine energy. I think that's, well, I kind of relate to the woman's question though, because, Skip, you talk about how we want to make this class applicable to real world things. Right. So to me, I mean, I'm not here to speak for anyone else. Well, kind of, I do that sometimes, but basically is like, I am a woman, I identify as a woman, and I have experienced what I have considered injustice within that. But that being said, if we're talking about this as on a higher plane, right, where we're not looking at like gender constructs, but more like energies, that's why I think there's something about the feminine energy being fierce, but in a way that is it's not an uncontrolled energy, right? So if a woman is a judge, she, I'm just picturing this story. Like, let's say, okay, Samantha's in a movie where she's playing a judge and someone wrongs me, but somehow I end up being, I went to theater school. This is where this is coming from. I end up being the judge, right? I don't have to go and like fight that person because I can trust in this story that I'm making up, guys, to make a point, that the law is on my side. You see? So
yeah, there's a new Supreme Court justice who's female, and we celebrate her coming now.
Can you say that one more time, a little more slowly? I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
There's a new U.S. Supreme Court justice just appointed, and we can celebrate her coming. Hopefully, she will fulfill all the roles that you can imagine her doing that.
So I would actually like to speak to Nick's point, and I do think we are orbiting around societal, social constructs, gender politics and racism, and they're all important, and I don't want to diminish them, but I think Nicholas was making a reference when we say orbiting around gender concepts that we're talking about the divine feminine and the divine masculine, and actually in the point of instinct and spirit, and we all have both. And so I do think that we do tend to get quagmired by not inspecting our expectations of the immutable portions, the things that are not able to be dissolved out of the meaning. And I appreciate you bringing that up, Nick, because orbiting around basically current events becomes going to social studies instead of coming to advanced tarot study.
So, and I mean, no offense to anybody, but
none at all.
I don't want to keep coming back to this, and I'm sorry if I've let too much time go by, but I was attempting my hand at a joke. I do identify as a male.
Oh, I thought you were totally serious.
And I kind of just wanted to shut the conversation down.
Oh, well, okay. That's not fair. That's not right.
No, right. I have a couple of comments now.
I have non-binary friends.
My turn.
Yeah, Skip, please.
I'm going to exercise the prerogative of the chair here. Okay, so number one, tomorrow we're going to have a collective judgment, and it does represent karma to the fourth generation and maybe further, and it will initiate karma to 4 more generations, potentially, okay,
Yeah.
depending on how things happen. And so what we're going to get tomorrow is what we as a country have done as a
So-
collective, okay? And
Why do you get the 4th generation thing though? What is that a reference to a specific sacred text? Is that your personal conviction? I want to hear about that.
I'm pretty sure that came out of Buddhism, and I have books on karma, okay? I have entire
makes
books.
Book of Revelation also brings it to the 4th generation.
Yeah.
The final chapter of.
Okay, so one other thing is that not only Black people are discriminated against, because I've experienced discrimination myself, because when I came to Washington in 1986, I, as a college, or as a Japanese Chinese speaking lawyer MBA with 5 years of experience working in Japan, I expected to be able to get a job in Washington, in the government, possibly. And I never could, okay? And it took me 2 years to figure that out. I finally took a job teaching finance at the University of Maryland Graduate School. But the reason I couldn't get a job in Washington at age 39 was that the personnel branch of the federal government is controlled by Black women, and so they, where possible, they give federal jobs to Black people, and I don't object to that, but it was very painful for me to learn that fact. That's a fact. Okay. But it was very painful for me to learn that. And I went 2 years without a job after having run a company in Japan for 5 years, and after practicing law for 5 years. So I was really shocked when that happened. I fully expected to be able to get a job instantly, and I didn't. I couldn't.
Well, if I may, I feel that this happens a lot. First of all, I appreciate that you meant, because you're talking about a duality. That's what I hear. And I experience,
yeah, sure.
Right. Where
I'm just saying it goes around, and it has gone around in our country. And I don't deny that there's been very severe discrimination against Black people, certainly. Okay, but it also works the other way, is all I'm saying. And what I experienced was karma, was justice. It wasn't my justice. Okay. It was the justice of karma that was playing itself out in the US federal government. And I was, part of collateral damage in that case. But I mean, obviously lots of Black people have been collateral damage too. So,
and by law, by the lower law of the land, not so that's what I'm hearing. And what I wanted to speak to, because I want to be sensitive to the fact that, like, I haven't had that particular experience. I mean, I can think of my own analogies in my own life, but that's more based on me being accused of a certain type of privilege because of how I look by another woman. And then anyway, we're talking about body image, and I'm taller and thinner than her. So she was saying I had more privilege, and it was like, oh, geez. Anyway, like, come on. It was a worse story. Yeah, I won't get into it. It could take the whole time.
All right. All right. So there's some other questions.
Wait,
okay. One
more
more sentence.
Important. I'm going to fight for this, to say this, is that it's important to realize that we all have our own biases. And I think that when a woman wants to talk about gender, I think we ought to allow her to speak. And I know your heart is good, Nicholas, so I'm not getting mad, but I responded sincerely because when you talked about how you identify, because the world is bigger than this one perspective. And I think sometimes when we have conversations like these, the experience that ends up being centered is white and male and cisgendered and straight, which is your prerogative if that's your experience. But for some of us in the room, that's not our experience. And especially if you come from a group where you are where you have historically been oppressed, and I can say this because I do come from groups like that, you feel you want to be seen. So these are the issues when we walk in and around in the world that we actually do deal with on an, like I mentioned, like having someone ask for my receipt or being harassed. Those things might not seem real to other people who don't experience that, but they are real to me. So I felt a responsibility to speak up for her while also agreeing that gender within the tarot is simply a metaphor and is about energies.
Right. And tomorrow we're going to see a justice energy crystallized for the instant of the result of this election. Okay.
Yes.
Things will change afterward, whichever way it goes, right? But tomorrow we get what we deserve. Okay. just remember that. Okay, now let me go to a couple of these other questions. So JVH on YouTube says, our faith is kept alive by the knowledge founded on long experience that the arc of history is long and bends toward justice. And I concur with that. And that basically that's saying what goes around comes around, which is a Buddhist or a Western way of saying karma. and so Shannon or Miles asks a question. Skip, today I listened to Jordan Peterson, who said those who believe Foucault's perspective of a world dominated by power hierarchies are nuts. Has trying to fight banks changed your perspective? I'm not quite sure what you mean by changing my perspective. It certainly has changed my perspective about the rule of law in the United States. I would say that. The rule of law in the United States is a persona of the federal government, but it doesn't necessarily exist. And when we elect judges who are funded in their election campaigns by the banks, then the banks are going to control the judges as they did, and they do. And so the sooner we understand that we have to select impartial justices in order for the rule of law to be impartial, the better off we will be.
And it's not necessary to be blind in order to be impartial.
That's right. Absolutely.
It's eyes open, looking at all the factors.
Right. And for all the screaming that we've had about our new selected judges on the Supreme Court, I just want to point out to everyone that historically, justices of the Supreme Court over time, and this is if they're in position for a long time, tend to get more progressive as they go forward. And so judges that were selected by very conservative, thinking that they were very conservative, Earl Warren being one, and more recent one, Chief Justice, they all gave progressive decisions. And I would just point out to the women who worry about Judge Barrett that Judge Barrett has been living in an echo chamber for all of her life, basically. And so the only people that she's talked to basically are people that have this point of view that she has, which she won't admit to. But when she's in the judicial chambers at the Supreme Court, she's going to have only two women colleagues, and those are Elena Kagan and Justice Sotomayor, and they are both progressive. And so one can expect that she will be hearing a lot about women's rights. that she hasn't heard before, and that she may turn out to be much more progressive than people think. Colleen says yes. So, I'm not saying that something isn't going to be done about it after the election, but what I would say is that has been our experience in the United States, that justices of the Supreme Court who have a lifetime appointment start to tend to become more progressive over time.
And Skip, that's a wonderful point about the idea of the echo chamber, because then that creates over time interference patterns that actually just ingrain that one thing and actually insulate it from the outside world. And then they get in there, and in a sense, there's the purity of only 11 peers, or only the number of peers you have, depending on if more or less. But then they start to become themselves. All the things maybe that they fought for early on start to come forward, and then they're in an evolved position of power, and they're able to cleanly open up without reserve into their role.
I'm glad that Eldris, I hope I'm pronouncing that respectfully.
Yes,
correctly.
thank you.
I'm glad that you mentioned the new Supreme Court justice, because that is an example also of judge not by appearances, right?
Yes.
Like just because, I mean, we have certain associations with political parties, or whether someone certain, I want to say stereotypical, but of what people are going to believe in. But that goes back to the blindfold being a metaphor as well. Being able, because so the Bible does say at one point, judge not by appearances. So I guess that's a duality, like justice need not be blind. You want to see, right? I'm doing the quotes. So you want to see the fact simultaneously. I shouldn't assume, just because a woman is the justice, she has my personal interests, and the same can go along race and a whole bunch of things. So it's I don't want to say it's complicated. It's multi-layered.
Definitely.
In the last 25 years of India's experience, India is another very healthy democracy. And in their experience, whatever failing the two branches of government, whether executive or the legislative, have happened from their hands, actually it was the Supreme Court who actually amended it and took the side of the most disenfranchised, the ones with least power, those who could not actually hire good lawyers and all that, or those who could not actually have their member of parliament, just because their numbers are so few, or they're so have some disadvantages. So this model actually, my whole statement was packed with the word hope. I have hope, and we shall all hope. And that kindness that's actually in every home, in every household, love and kindness and generosity are taught by women to men. They make a house a home. So I have great faith in that part. And I came with hope, although hope is something that is always have a neighbor as fear. That's why we have to have hope. Just the moments of fear are the most important moments to carry hope with us.
Okay, so I hope everybody's got their deck of cards and has been shuffling them. I'm not going yet. We're not going to do it yet, but
just get them close by.
We have a question?
I'm just reminding. Go ahead. Somebody had a question, Raquel?
No, for Tarot, we have a question to make.
Yeah, the question is what's going to happen in the election tomorrow.
Okay.
That's the question.
We already know it's the 10 of Cups. I've been telling everyone that all day, like, fret not, like, and telling them why, and telling them about you too.
Yeah, well, Samantha, you should be watching my Twitter feed, because I've been doing a tarot reading for the president every single day, and it's incredibly, it's scarily consistent.
Okay. I'll make my way back to Twitter. I don't have the password. That's the only reason but
Yeah.
I've been telling people about Skip Conover. I really have. I'm like, there's
No,
this
I'm going
guy.
to keep doing it until at least January the 21st. And I don't know what January 21st, what year yet. Okay. As long as the president is in power, I'm going to be doing tarot readings for him almost every day.
I think I've said this before, but it's pretty funny to imagine Trump finding out about you doing tarot readings. And
I've been sending him to him.
Skip's readings, best in the world.
Could happen, man.
I don't think he'd like it. I don't think he'd like it. If you got his number, right?
We may have a different element appearing on the show soon. That
but the point is that the cards don't lie. I mean, I'm shuffling them without thinking about it as we talk, and I urge you all to do that. And Samantha knows what I came up with last week when this question was asked. And so even though I acknowledge that my reading is probably biased, I acknowledge that, but the cards don't lie. And so when you see the cards that I've drawn and the layouts that I've done, it's extremely consistent. And so,
Skip, may I ask a question?
Yeah, quickly.
I already sent you as a text, actually. What do you think about the psyche's role as justice itself? Because psyche balances itself out each time.
Yeah, I think that
an individual makes a conscious decision.
I think that Ouspensky is right on. Okay, that once you realize that you can't hide from justice, that you can't hide from karma, in effect. You can call it karma, you can call it justice, but once you realize that you cannot hide from archetypal justice, that's actually what we're talking about here. It's not a being, we're talking about a divine energy. You know, the major arcana are divine energies that are only expressed through the tarot. And so once you understand that divine energy, once you've entered the temple and you've seen it, then you cannot escape it. You understand it. You know it's going to get you in the end.
And it's about restoration, not retribution.
Absolutely.
In Science of Mind, they talk about that there's not, it's like nature. It's like, law of conservation of energy. It can't be created or destroyed. So it must, by law, we're talking about law and what that represents. By law, this is just what happens. So if you're thinking of this as a God thing, it's not that God wants to punish. It's that the Father, Son, Holy Spirit. I'm just referring to Christianity, or the Trinity appears in all religions, right?
Absolutely.
Like, everywhere. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not about punishment, that it's about restoration. It's not retribution. It's not revenge. It's just the way energy works.
All right. So one thing I would like to do, because we haven't gotten until very late some of the other cards I've set up for the evening. And so what I want to do is just very quickly show for 30 seconds at a time the cards that I want to talk about tonight, and so that people can go back and meditate on different cuts on the images themselves. All right, so that you can meditate on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show the cards that I've set up, and then we'll come back and start talking about them. All right, so I'm going to do that by sharing my screen. And so the first one, because the woman who did the She-Wolf deck is also the person that in the Encyclopedia of Esoterica was selected for the opening of the Justice card, I want to talk about her interpretation first. So this is her card, and we're not going to talk about it right now. I just want to put it up on the screen long enough so that on the video later, people can come back and look at this card and stop the video. Okay.
Can you
so
make the image itself a little bit larger? I couldn't really make out most of the details.
Okay, I apologize. Let me make it bigger for you. Yes.
Take a snapshot.
That I can do. All right. All right. So this is the first.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay. So she's got a woman lying on her back, a naked woman lying on her back, feathers here. This is, she describes as rainbow, as you'll hear. Here we have a flower and we have two snakes. Okay. And it's about balance. Okay. So going on.
Oh.
All right. So let me.
Then you make it bigger.
Okay. All right. Let me give you the next one. Okay. Here's the Starman Tarot, and again I'll make it bigger so you can see it. It does get pretty dramatic when you make it bigger, I must say. This deck is definitely growing on me. So that's the Starman Tarot.
A brown person, yay! I see a brown person. I don't know what they intended. It's nice to see it.
Wow, awesome card.
Okay.
So
Her
alive.
yoni is literally radiating light.
There you go. There you go.
Heart and mind integration. Her, right? We don't know.
Okay, so that's the Starman. So then, all right, so this is the four that Robert Wang talks about every week in the Kabbalistic Tarot. And so I want to show these. So on the upper left is the Golden Dawn Tarot. The one on the upper right is the Thoth deck. The lower left is Rider-Waite-Colman, and lower right is Marseille. Does anyone, Nick or Jordan, perhaps know whether this white in this eye on the Marseille deck, is that a lacuna or is that actually in the card?
Not in the card.
It's not in the card.
Not in my deck.
No, I
Unless
think
it's
it is lacuna. I think it's basically over time. It looks if you look at the bottom of the eye, there's it's almost like a wear pattern from the reproduction. I haven't actually seen that particular one without two full eyes. I think it actually is more the antique quality of use from the reproduction.
Right. Okay. Good to know.
Is my understanding.
I have that deck and the eyes are full.
Yeah.
Okay,
So that's
great.
it is a lacuna.
Me
Great
too.
to know.
Unless there was one, there's so many Marseilles out there as well. There's a lot.
Yeah.
So actually,
But going back to the original, the eyes
lot.
are full.
There's
Going back
not
to the
a
original,
lot.
that is a lacuna.
They take away some of the expression in some of them that you can see in the earlier ones, like the actual emotion.
Right. Okay. Now moving on. The two on the top here are Melissa Townsend's decks. The one on the left is her Elted's deck, which she actually used in Greenwich Village when she used to do readings in Greenwich Village before she moved to San Francisco. And the one on the right is the deck that she currently uses. And I just point out that here she's focusing on a blindfolded justice. And in the lower two, one, we don't have, the one on the left, we have the crow as the symbol of justice. And on the right, we have a balance between the feather and the soul, as Stasia explains in the Suraiba Hito deck.
And that's
Skip-
also Mott weighing the heart against the feather to be welcomed in.
Uh-huh.
The
Okay.
the top right one reminds me of the word trust. Like when we trust, we naturally instinctively close our eyes. When we have like deep trust about something, probably
Right.
that could actually connect to it. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but I mean,
yeah.
I think she made this pretty intimidating because the blind justice is there, but the executioner is right there with the sword.
And it looks like her hand's on the blade. I mean, it could be the hilt, but that's intense.
Yeah, it's intense. Okay, and then here is Jordan's deck, the Mysterium deck. Let me pull this
Thank you.
one up. All right,
Jordan's famous.
so this is Jordan's deck,
Oh,
and we'll come back to this deck because I want to hear Jordan tell us about what this is about. But for the time being, I just want to show the card. So it's the Mysterium Tarot is where this is found, and let's see, there's a couple more. Ah, yes.
I think this might be my favorite of your cards that I've seen so far, Jordan.
Thank you. It's actually one of mine as well. This is to me where the whole self comes into play. I'll go into it later, but thank you very much, Nick.
Of course.
will we have an opportunity to talk about that again tonight, Skip? Is that what you said?
Yeah. I just want to make sure
Yeah.
for people who are going to stop after 2 hours that they can see this.
It's a great idea too for you to
Right.
hang them out for later, so that people
Yeah.
looking
Yeah,
can
as
find them.
they're looking at the recording, they can stop the recording and actually look through them. So what we have here is the Line Strider deck on the upper left. This one is the Justice card in the 5th Tarot, I believe. And I must say that I do like the imagery in the 5th Tarot. And I'm a little less enthused with the descriptions, but the imagery is wonderful, actually.
Something came in the mail today. Thank you. And other than the Fool, I warmed to the images relatively quickly. The Fool was the hearts and flowers, unicorns, and the rest actually started to become more Native American, Eskimo, indigenous myth and story. And anyway,
moving on. The lower left is the Splendor Solace card, and
is there any way you could zoom in on that one? There's a lot going on there.
yeah, there's a lot going on, and the description, if we get time for it, is a stretch. But this is supposed to be Justice in the Splendor Solace deck.
that's quite the vessel, though, and the contents, the container and the contained at one and the same time, with the dragon and then the Pueri, Pres Eternus.
Right.
Will you move up just a little bit more so I can see this the chariot above the vase?
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a spirit. There's a spirit.
Right.
What? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, they almost all have that, or all the ones with the vase have a charioteer and a certain kind of chariot above them. But it's weird because that looks like a Saturnian image to me.
Yeah.
There's black all throughout it.
Could be.
Saturnian.
And pardon?
I am newer to this in some ways than the group. So what are you saying? Saturni? Is that what you're saying? I don't know what that is.
Saturnian, like relating to Saturn?
Saturnian. Yes, got it.
Okay, and the lower right is the Mystic Mondays Tarot. So that's
I'm underwhelmed.
Okay.
Justice doesn't often need much.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's hey, I mean, God bless. Like that's good for them as an artist. Like happy for them. I just,
Yeah,
I prefer Jordan.
I'm just showing people that this divine energy can be represented in a lot of ways. Okay, and so that's what I'm trying to show here as quickly as I can. All right, so here on the left, we have The Divine Tarot by Yoshi Yoshitani. And on the right, we have Justice by, in the Liz Green deck, the Mythic Tarot, or the new Mythic Tarot it is. So we'll come back to that. Here she has Athena. This is Athena in her deck.
I thought of another reason that justice is female or feminine energy. Can I talk? I want to talk about it.
Okay, could it wait until we get through these? Because
It can, and I think I can say it in actually kind of short, just so you know.
Okay, give me 5 more minutes to get through this.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so I want to show, this is the Visconti deck, I believe I've got here. Where is it? Here, okay, here it is. All right, so this is the Visconti deck. And again, I have a mini deck, so I've blown this.
Well.
I've blown this way up so that you can see it. And so some people say this was the first deck that was created. And who knows? Nobody knows. Really.
Well, historically, keep going.
All right. I already showed you the Secret Tarot at the beginning. I guess that's the end, but except for one. I just wanted to show you also that I pulled up because we didn't look at it the last time. And because, oh no, there's 2 more. Okay, so first of all, here is the Deviant Moon deck. And these are always quite incredible. And the story in this is quite interesting. As you can see, this being is looking both to the left and it's half of the face looking forward. And there's a sword in both hands.
And a Picasso the face.
And there's a keyhole back here for all these keys. And by the way, this is the leg of this creature. So we'll come back to that if we can.
And Skip, really quickly on your Visconti Sforza, I was in a tarot history webinar the other night, and I just had a note that, just as a sidebar, the 1494 and Emperor Maximilian marrying Bianca Maria Sforza, and it was commissioned by them as a wedding gift for them.
Okay, but obviously the tarot was well settled by then,
right?
For them to ask for it or get it for a wedding gift. Now I'm bringing this one up because it's strength in the Thoth deck, and we didn't talk about this the last time, but the discussion of this is very interesting from Aleister Crowley. So I want to come back to it. But you see here the lion for strength. He calls it lust. And so
he would, wouldn't he?
Yeah, probably. So we'll come back to that. But all right. So, all right. Now who wants to say what?
I want to say that, well, I want to say a lot of things, but I want to say Aleister Crowley was bisexual, and he that just goes to show you repressed sexuality causes problems, because that's why he invented Satanism. He was just like, his mom kept telling him he was going to go to hell for everything, and he said, well, if I have to serve the devil to enjoy my life, I'll serve the devil. Anyway, but that's neither here nor there.
I want to say something though. Bisexual would be very limiting for Crowley. That would be way too small of a thing for him.
I'm sure you're right. Yeah, I don't mean to.
Crowley didn't invent Satanism. Anton LaVey did.
Right.
My bad. Anyway, it was more of an interesting story than, but he did a lot to popularize it. We can agree on that, right?
No.
Okay, well, God bless you. My point is this. My point is this. I still respect you. But my point was about the divine feminine. I was thinking about justice. Is that what, why is justice represented by the feminine? And to me, that has to do with, and again, I'm talking about energies and not actual parts here, but in nature, the feminine protects, nurtures, is soft, provides food, and the only time it's roused to violence, I mean, if you think about a bear or a mountain lion, maybe not the only time if they hunt, whatever, is basically they will kill. But when they do that, it's to feed someone or to protect life. So it's the fierceness, the life and death stakes that comes out, but it's under a protective, nurturing, kind of like that life force. So I was just thinking about that, of mother, the concept of mother, and I think that's why justice is represented by the feminine. I'm done. I'm petering out here.
Yeah,
Tired.
That's a really bad pun with the mother metaphor.
Okay, we want to hear from Nicole here.
I really like hearing Samantha's perspective, and like you've got an incredible mind, and it's like you communicate, like I can see how you really think and speak at the same time. It's really powerful. Yeah, and I got nothing. I'm just enjoying it. It's great.
I interrupted your thoughts, Steve.
Okay, I just want to observe for everybody that's watching that represented on this panel, and probably is true also in the YouTube group, we have people from several continents. Nicole is from Australia. Raquel is from Brazil. Let's see, I think Idris is from Canada. And Miles, who was responding on YouTube, is from Canada. And Manuela, I don't recall. It's another Latin American country.
Argentina?
Argentina, right. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so.
I am from Argentina.
Okay, terrific. And so we have North and South America and Australia represented here. And it's great to have you all. Okay, all right, what do you want to talk about next? We can, I can read you what was said in the She-Wolf deck if you want. That's the first one that I showed you.
I definitely want to hear the description for the Liz Green deck and the Splendor Solace deck. I mean, not in any particular order, but I definitely just want to hear what they have to say about this.
Okay, well, in honor of Devani Wolf, who got her description in the encyclopedia, I'm going to read hers first, but then we'll come back and go to those because I have them right here also. So let me start with Devani Wolf and the She-Wolf deck, which has grown on me quite a lot. And I also at some point want to read about the Starman deck version. But all right, so here's Devani Wolf's card again, and she calls it balance, not justice. And she's talking about the artwork now, artwork illumination. Within a surreal landscape, a supine woman observes two snakes that have pointed themselves toward a central flower. A rainbow descends from the sun, and colorful feathers dance atop mountains. She has laid herself back in order to see all that she can and gain as much information as possible. The feathers are a symbol of Ma'at, the ancient Egyptian goddess of justice and morality. The rainbow represents the spectrum of understanding that is available to us if we allow our biases to fall away. And we've certainly heard about this tonight. The serpents denote wisdom and flexibility within our ideologies. They are pointed toward a blossoming, delicate flower that here speaks of many layers of life. On the light side, and this is in a reading, it is time to be uncompromising in our goal of seeking and maintaining balanced ideas, perspectives, habits, responsibilities, input and output. Excess right now will only lead to burnout, and laziness will lead to depression. We should seek to find all of the possible information that exists about any given subject we are interested in and involved in to become as wise as possible. Presumptions are not our friend and do not serve us. If there is a situation that calls for our opinion, we should seek to be fair and unbiased. Again, educating ourselves on all aspects and both sides is the best practice. Now, the reversed or the shadow side, we may be rushing to judgment and doling out punishment or praise, idolizing or ostracizing. Be careful to not join the mob on one side or the other. You know what they say, assume makes an ass of you and me. And that will always remain true. The shadow aspect of this card may also denote being imbalanced in our approach to our work, play, or leisure. It may be a warning to gear up or wind down, to adjust as necessary to a healthier mix. And the mantra, I lead by example by gaining a bird's eye view, quote unquote. Okay, so that's what Devani Wolf has to say about it. And 2 minutes of comment on this card if you want.
She has 2 tattoos on her breasts, right? Like the Eye of Horus? No?
She does have something on her breast. I don't know what it is.
You're gonna have to zoom in.
I'll zoom in. What is it? It looks like a worm.
Don't mind.
The Eye of Horus.
It is the Eye of Horus.
Yeah, and also a star.
Yeah,
Is that
below
the
it.
Star of David? No.
No, it's a 7-pointed star.
Yeah, which is an alchemist star.
What does that
Right.
mean, Nicholas?
But the Eye of Horus is upside down, is it not?
Well, but she's upside down.
Yeah.
So it's right side up on her.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
looking at her.
All right.
So that would be the Eye of Horus above literally, and then you go down to solar plexus and alchemy, and the 7-pointed star is the alchemist star. It's a symbol of the operations.
I love this card. She's very
Yeah.
receptive of everything that's going on. I mean, snakes are symbols of healing powers, sort of. The rose kind of like maybe a sense of her sexuality being restored somehow.
Yeah,
but her head is in the water, you know. She's
Yeah.
receptive, but she, you know, the things are coming down to her, you know.
And also with her knees, if you look, the 4
Yeah,
feathers
it's
would be 4
close.
ancestors and the pillars of the ancestors, and then the 2 most recent who don't have the feather. And then she is the living pillar, the entryway.
Right. And the water is the unconscious.
And
Right.
also the snakes could be seen as phallic as well. I just want to say that. It reminds me of
Yeah.
sperm going to the egg.
Well, but they all, yeah.
Wait a minute. The snakes were what, Samantha?
It could be phallic.
Yeah. Okay.
And they interpenetrate the earth when they go down into their homes.
Yeah, that could, I'm just saying the yoni symbolism with the egg and then the sperm.
Well, that's actually a really good point, because there's kind of a universe that from which all emanates I mean, all of this energy, these Tifereth steps, in a way, are those emanated from her? Are they being gifted to her? Is it both? She's kind of also feels bathing in one whole giant world of an ablution pool.
What if she's actually kneeling, you guys? She's kneeling on the steps. If you change the perspective, we're just above her. You see what I'm saying? If she were kneeling on these steps, on a step as if to walk up, it might
except for the gravity of hair would go against the motion, unless we have two axes. She could be kneeling and lying.
Yeah, because those snakes, those could be flat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the vantage point doesn't work that way.
No.
It's art. It's magic, you guys.
Well,
but this card,
as I think Robert Wang said about readings, blurt it out, whatever you see. Okay, that's enough.
I was just trying to acknowledge the divine masculine, you guys, with the snake green palette.
Okay, who's got a deck that they're going to talk about, or going to draw a card here? Who's ready?
I drew one.
Okay.
But I'm going to back off because I talk too much. So.
Okay.
I'll do it.
I want to give other people floor
For sharing.
So Raquel, do you have it would be best if a non-American reads
good point.
in a justice sort of way about us.
Good point.
Okay, just hold up.
We lost the privileges.
How about you, Nicole? Do you have a deck with you that you could draw a card from?
Yeah, I've got it here. Yeah, I've got it here. Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, I'll just.
Okay, you're not quite.
I got
ready.
it.
Okay, Raquel is ready. She's got a card.
Can we guess? Can we guess before you reveal the card?
Okay. I draw one major arcana and one minor.
Okay, great.
2 cards.
Okay.
I don't want to guess.
All right. So go ahead and guess, Nick. Go ahead.
I'm going to guess that it's going to be the Lovers and the 5 of Cups.
Okay. Interesting. Okay, Raquel.
Nobody else is gonna to pitch in, no?
I don't like the guess cards.
It's your time. No.
The Wizard.
The Wizard.
Yeah, the Mage. Yeah, the Magician.
The Magician. Okay, yes.
Oh, snap. Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
And the Queen of Wands that usually comes up and skips readings. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this card has a lot of Hermes intention. So things are not going to go like as predicted. Something is going to rattle things up. But the Queen of Wands, I see it as a force of loyalty to herself, especially, and very powerful and very like driven. So I don't know. I think it's a good combination for whatever is going to happen tomorrow. It's a very good combination.
Oh, wonderful. It's a wonderful combination. Thank you. And the Magician representing the eternal moment, because tomorrow is the eternal moment. We get what we get. We get what we deserve.
Well, and Queen of Wands is queens are natural leaders. And the Queen of Wands is master of her internal energies. I mean, they're completely in harmony. She has she herself is her own energetic weapon and her own energetic blessing. And if you take the Magician, I mean, go so far as to Madge, Biden, Queen of Wands, Harris, pulls no punches, and just so.
Yeah. And I think it's a beginning,
Yeah.
Beginning.
Yeah, let's just hope it's got nothing to do with the Black Magician.
Yeah, and this is not my reading, but I prophesied that the president would lose tomorrow because he lost on August the 18th, 1920. He lost 100 years ago. He lost 100 years ago.
Is that the 4th generation you're speaking to?
No, that was the date that women were given the vote in the United
Oh,
States.
Wink. You're quick, Skip. That was too quick for me. I was like,
So he actually
that.
lost this election. It doesn't matter because he's lost this election a century ago. Okay,
So the
Nicole,
suffragists
He
are
was the
going
last little boy once. That's all to know. I think his family did it. I think his family must have.
yeah, and he
So-
still
so
is.
His
Yeah, he
parents.
is. But he's a man now, so he's responsible for it himself instead of being a tantrum throwing 4-year-old. I didn't say that out loud, but I
Not
did.
an excuse. But
Okay,
I like
so
that. I
Nicole,
like that, Skip.
Nicole, you're next because you're a non-American. So
Okay, so this is
I get
about
nervous.
the election, right?
go ahead.
So yeah, okay, I'll just cut the deck and pick a card. I'm just
I know we said this last
spreading
week,
them
Nicole, but it looks like you just have such a beautiful home.
Oh, if stuff goes down here, I want to think of me.
It's
I'm
a
not
it's
place
it's
to
a con-
stay.
it's a yeah, it is a bit like that. It's the Lost Boys home, but there's no boys here at the moment. Okay, it's the 7 of Pentacles upside down, reversed.
7 of Pentacles reversed.
Uh-oh. I think it
7.
means,
It's funny, I get a lot of 7s at the moment.
what do you think it
7
means?
is a well, the number 7 is an interesting number because it's a what is the number 7? To me, it's a really spiritual number because it's not. It's just I don't know why 7 is.
7 is like a second nature number too, Nicole. You're really into something good there because 7s are very important. They're a chaos
resonates
number.
about
I've heard 3 different definitions of 7. So it can be inward reflection. It could be having a diversity of options. And then what Jordan said about, yeah, so it can it can be in a chaotic way, having a diversity of options. It can mean inward reflection. And there's a third meaning that I'm not thinking of right now. But to me, when I see that, I think, oh, we're reflecting on, material things, anything of matter, like pentacles meaning anything material. But the reverse makes me think, this is what my subconscious mind is projecting, but like about capitalism, about we're wondering, is this system working anymore, type of thing.
Yeah.
And you hit something on the head there, Samantha, actually, with the 7, with the alchemy too. Instead of alchemy of matter, there's the alchemy of the elements.
Well, there's the alchemy of the divine archetypes, and so that's what this whole tarot as a roadmap for life is about. That yes, there may seem like chaos if you're looking up close, but life isn't going away. It's going to be different from tomorrow.
And I refer to the 7 of Pentacles as a soul gardener. It's the upper 7 of the tree.
Look, there's grapes here, right?
Yeah.
See the grapevine?
That's great.
Grapevines in the card. There's grapevines in the card.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Very interesting. Very cool.
That's kind of weird. Anyway, but yeah, it's like.
So, Adrice, do you have a deck?
Did that go?
I drew it on my cell phone and I didn't know the question when I drew it. So at that point, I just thought that it's just a mental exercise. I didn't know your question, but it was a reversed sun card that came out.
Reverse sun.
I might rely on your interpretation and the group here. But BD Tarot website says the reverse sun is calling to your inner child to come out and play. As adults, we get so lost in the hustle and bustle of everyday life that we forget how to have fun. But just spend a few minutes watching a kid play and you realize how wonderful and carefree life can be. when you learn to let go of your worries and concerns, dance like no one is watching. And later it says, nonetheless, the sun is never a negative card, so this is only temporary. The obstacles you see can be easily removed if you put your mind to it. It may just take a bit more effort than usual. So I don't know how it relates to the whole psychic state we're all in.
That's a great reading with the biddy, because also the retrograde or the reversals there aren't negatives; they're more retrogrades, like astrology. So that the reversals go inner, and the regular uprights are out here. So that's a great contribution.
Right.
Thank you.
So,
I'm really impressed because Sun and Moon never go retrograde, so that's gonna be a big meaning.
Could mean
If
to
sun-
pay attention to it also.
Yeah.
Just like so I've heard the tarot being read as if it's upside down, it's telling you kind of like you're low on fuel on this concept.
Okay.
There are
Fuel
lots
up
of
on
different.
your door.
There's lots.
So Manuela, did you draw a card?
Yes, I did. And look at
What
was
did you
the
get?
sun.
Also the sun.
Also the
Yes.
sun, but upright.
Yes.
That's plasma.
Upright, yes.
It
Well,
got
the
upright
sun-
because it got happy.
The
Sorry.
sun will come out
Actually-
for somebody tomorrow. That's for
But
sure.
if you're in Argentina, that would be reversed to us because we have to cross the equator. So it's
Stop it.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it might be reversed. And that's a good point. And Patricia, did you draw a card? I guess
Patricia
Patricia.
Oh, she's driving.
driving. Oops.
Okay. All right. How about Jenny? Did you draw a card?
Pull a card anyways, Patricia.
Okay.
That was
Just
wrong.
kidding.
Jenny also
Just
got
kidding.
the sun.
Just kidding.
Participate. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Jenny also got the
okay.
sun and the two of
Jenny-
wands.
Okay. And all right. So Jenny also drew the sun and the two of wands. Wow. Okay. Annabelle, did you do?
Yes, I did. The star.
Ah,
Healing.
great. Great.
And am I supposed to be drawing another one?
If you want to,
Would that be the next one down on the deck then maybe?
up to you.
Up to you.
Can I split it up? Okay.
Whatever you think.
Oh,
it
it's just such an incredible contrast.
That is the two of swords or the four
Or
of
a
swords?
baton,
Four.
right? Or is it swords?
This is Marseille deck.
And I believe that's the four of batons, because I think all the
mine
swords
covers
have
the
some type of
four.
sword in them, like something that they're.
Right.
Let me not.
Not always.
No,
I think
it's
it's
the two
the
of swords. It's the two of swords.
What,
Yes, okay.
what makes a baton then in that deck? It's just when it doesn't have a flower?
Let me see.
But baton is the French for wand, actually.
Yeah, I know, but they
All
present.
right. So it's wands. Is that right?
They present differently in the Marseille.
I think
Okay.
it's swords
Yeah, I thought it
look
was
very-
swords too.
They look
because of the shape of the wands shaped differently in
Yeah.
in the edges.
Yeah, so I think it's the swords also, unless somebody has the deck and is sure.
I do.
Well,
I
I have the deck and I'm having trouble finding. You know what? There's a color difference. Here is the other, which may be baton.
Yeah,
right,
that's
because the
baton.
red, that it is, because red would be energy, fire, and wands, and baton.
Right.
So this is
That's the two of swords.
Can
Okay.
you
Look
show the
short.
batons again, please? Baton.
Well, okay. So the star represents hope, and the two of swords is that we have a duel tomorrow.
Oh, and
Oh,
also a
good.
focused decision. There's also a focused decision.
Right. Okay.
Remember,
Nick,
remember, and that's the and not antithesis, nemesis.
It's actually four of swords, not two.
oh, it's
because
the
the-
four
Yeah,
of
you know,
swords.
there are four.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is
four
the
of
two.
swords.
I'm
Swords is
Googling
four.
the difference between wands and swords in Marseille because it is confusing.
Yeah,
Right.
it's very confusing.
So it
Okay.
is four of swords.
Yeah,
Yeah.
four.
Four of
So,
swords.
So is that a double
There's
duality?
a number. at the end.
Stability. It can mean stability or a trap. Either one, like a square, you know.
And there's
you
also
boxing?
communications in motion
well, four of
that are
swords
very
and
cutting.
yeah, four
Here
of
is
swords and
the Four of
Rider-Waite
Swords.
represents peace, temporary peace at least.
The
Oh.
balance of the four.
Balance
The four-
of the four.
The
'Cause
four
your mind is
communications.
stable. I think
Well,
of
the
that
four thoughts of the four directions all come into harmony.
as
Right,
without,
right.
so within, right? So for me, that means that's me being sane.
Yeah.
Because it's like being mentally stable. Swords are
Okay,
the
so
balance of the
Samantha, did you give us yours?
No, I'm gonna do it right now, guys. I usually do like a really elaborate prayer and stuff, but you know, spirit is everywhere present, so it's cool. All right, guys.
Just let the group be your prayer.
One more shuffle.
You were supposed to be doing that for the last half hour.
I did skip.
Okay, what are you giving us?
Okay, so we have a 7 of discs. I'm going to lift it up in a second, but I'm trying to get the positionality. It's a 7 of discs. I did mother piece round deck.
Okay.
7 of discs with, I'm going to say, a sideways tilt to the
Which
left.
way?
Which way?
To the left?
To the left. So this is upright for folks who want to see. Can you guys see it okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What I understand this to mean is it has to do with, and I'd love to actually read it, but I'm just going to do a little Sammy from what I recall. Impatience, okay? Impatience is what this means. So there's a woman, she's like about to pop, you know, pregnancy wise, but she's not there yet. And so it's tilted, which means usually it means like low on whatever it is. So I don't know. But I'll just say, yeah, before I refer to the mother piece, I'll just say, so going by discs, that's the realm of the material. And I think of 7 as options and sometimes chaos. So I don't know, I'm less familiar with this deck. It's more pressure when everyone's looking at you. I just want to read the description. But what you guys think it means? Say again? Oh, it's the equivalent of the 7 of Pentacles. The mother piece deck is represents more the divine feminine as well as people of color. So it's sort of that's why. So they don't monetize it. These are something like squash or pumpkins, is what it looks like. So.
Well, Nicole, you got the 7 of Pentacles. Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
What does it mean to you guys? That's what I want to hear. Yeah, and mine was turned sideways. So I just want to hear, what do you guys think it means?
That's interesting.
Well, actually, Nicole, since it came up for you as well, we've got kind of a twin card appearance. What are your feelings within the mother piece there in tandem within your 7 of Pentacles coming up? Do you have any extensions from what you had before? Anything coming to you?
Well, what came through before, even I got quite activated before when Samantha was talking, because I wanted to say, and I forgot about it, but I wanted to say that in regards to the divine feminine, we actually don't know how deep it goes, because it goes very deep. There's so much space in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's what's coming through in the world, is that these unknown realms and these unknown energies are going to get magnified and become more either chaotic or Yeah.
I
that's-
think the feminine could be coming to the forefront more, especially if you
Okay,
get the
Yeah.
let me give you something from YouTube here. Miles says, Indigenous people hold 7 generations are who need to reflect upon in our decisions. We have to reflect on 7 generations. So you're talking about to pop, but you have to think about 7 generations. What's it going to mean?
a lot of pressure.
And yeah, and he said,
Yeah.
he also said, wow, I was praying for 7, Samantha.
Oh,
Patrick says, 7's very powerful original planets making the 7 days of the week. Okay, and Patricia said that she got from the 5th tarot, she got the Hermit. And so that's interesting also.
may I
There's no-
read? May I read what the 7, what it actually says here? It's not, I don't think it's very.
Okay, very quickly.
Okay, thank you. So one moment. 7 of discs. I'm gonna guess just very quick. I think that it means that we need something about being more. The tilt is something to do with, it's not upside down, but it might have something to do with we need to be a bit more active. We're a little too listless and we need to take more practical action or reflect more actively on the issues with our economy, I think. Anyway, but let's see here. 7 of discs. The description is a woman is pregnant and waiting for her baby to be born and their melons to ripen. Upright, it means she waits for something to be born and is in a period of gestation or incubating. She is in the last part of inner growth before the harvest, birth, or end product. Left, which is what it was facing when I pulled it, was she inhibits or slows down the gestation. Right is she pushes the birth. Reversed is she's impatient. That's where I was getting that. She's impatient or even anxious to be done with waiting. She wants whatever it is to hurry up and manifest. She may even be obsessively watching herself and her process. She needs to trust the time it takes for what she wants to happen. So it's looking like the US is, it was left. I don't know if it's reversed for you guys, but this is supposed to be left. So inhibiting or slowing down the gestation.
So basically left, she's pulled back on the reins.
Right.
She's tugged back the brakes.
Okay, let's move on. Let's move on.
Thank
Colleen,
you.
do you have a card and did you pull it? No, okay. Nick, do you have a card and have you pulled
I
it?
can, yeah. Let's see here. See what happens. All right, I got the 6 of Swords, which is not a very positive card.
The perfect time to think.
And yeah,
Hey,
maybe-
make sure to pay the ferryman.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely a component of retreating, certainly across choppy waters. So
It's a perfect time for you to think.
Right. Jordan.
I pulled the Emperor
Ooh.
and the Ace of Cups. So to me, the Ace of Cups would be a new Emperor seed that is being watered.
Mm-hmm.
And in this reading, I'll do motion, where the first card pulled is what was, and the second card pulled is what is. So the Emperor was, and the Ace of Cups is. And I know that that reflects my inherent hope and bias, and I hope I'm not smoking hope.
Don't smoke coke.
Okay. I think we've gotten everybody now. And Oliver, you're here. Did you draw a card? Okay. So
Did you draw a card? Did I miss that part?
no, I haven't drawn my card yet. Are you ready?
Okay, thanks. Yes.
I'm not ready,
now
but willing and waiting.
Okay. My high card is the High Priestess, And the second card is Justice.
Oh, what?
Mm-hmm.
What? Whoa.
That's funny.
I
I
think
wanted
you
to
guys are.
point out in the little presentation that I did at the beginning that there's a connection between those two. I mean, the symbolism on the cards is almost the exact same.
Yeah.
But it's almost like one is the exoteric, one is the esoteric version, but also 1 and 1 is 2.
Well,
And
you know what's interesting?
It's a mystery, but I think that's really amazing.
I think that's really amazing.
Yeah,
Skip.
I do too.
And mind you, I was
jealous.
blindly shuffling these cards throughout this session. So
I'm jealous.
Well, you know what's interesting? Regardless of
Show
whether
us
you
the
put
High Priestess.
No, I'm jealous of Skip because the divination. It was like he touched his electrified finger to the deck, and it was like,
and last week I got the 10 of cups.
we'll see. We're going. We
I
gonna
mean,
learn. We gonna
this
find
is,
out.
I mean, this is why I'm going to have to burn that Cosmic Tarot deck after I finish with it, with the
You're gonna do
president.
the ashes though.
You know what's interesting about you drawing the Justice card there too is if you put Justice at 11, then the big wheel came before it. You can, with Justice, lean back like Samantha's card, pull back to the left and pull on the reins to harmonize with cycles that then run through Justice to the Hanged Man, which is an enlightenment. Whereas if you go to Justice as 8, you drop back to the harmonized forces of the Chariot. And then you move forward through Justice to then become clear with your decision in the Hermit.
Yeah, it's like Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She was all about inch by inch, inch by inch. You know what I mean? Like, to me, that's what this means, pulling back. Like,
And that's how she can also not budge. Because
it also represents. Sorry. It also represents me. I mean, everyone's cards also represents them at this exact point. That's what I think.
Right.
Like wherever we are in our lives through the lens of what's
That's a very good thought. Yes, I agree.
Okay, Nick made 2 requests here. He requested that I read Liz Green's interpretation here. So let me put back onto the screen the Mythic Tarot. I think I have it here. Okay, so the Mythic Tarot is on the right, and the Divine Tarot is on the left. But anyway, all right, so here's what Liz Green says. The card of Justice portrays a severely beautiful young woman dressed in silver helmet and battle armor, seated on a throne. In her right hand, she holds an upright sword. In her left hand, she holds a pair of scales. Her pale hair and white robes echo the purity of the 2 white columns and portico which frame her. Beneath her feet is a floor patterned in black and white marble. An owl perches on her left shoulder. The owl, Athene's bird, reflects her clarity of vision because it can see and hunt its prey in the dark. And the scales symbolize the capacity to weigh one thing against another, to arrive at an impartial judgment. In myth, Athene was said to have invented the first human jury. And then she says the black and white patterned floor suggests the mind's capacity to integrate black, dark, and light into an orderly and coherent design. I'm not going to read it all, but is that enough, Nick? Or
Yeah, there's something really interesting that I'm conflicted on saying, but I'll just go ahead and say it. I recently had a really interesting experience with an owl, and so right after I finished my presentation with you guys this past Monday, I walked outside to look at the moon. And I live out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, there are no houses, no lights or anything, so I can just see the open sky. And there's a power line that comes right off the edge of my house. and right on the power line, like 3 feet away from me, there was an owl that just sat there for like 5 minutes while I just sat next to it. It was really awesome, and I was just, I don't know, it felt super meaningful, and I tried to look for mythological references to an owl, and I didn't look very hard, so
Yeah.
I didn't find anything, but I think
Well,
it's
there-
interesting that it's coming up now.
How
Well,
did it feel?
you know,
How did it feel to you at the time is what I want to know. Because that sounds like a spirit animal for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to say anything more, I don't think. I just wanted to share that it happened.
And I would just, I would say then from Nick, one, thanks for sharing that. And Ted Andrews, Animal Speak, just the keynote words and the cycle of power words for owl are, keynotes are mystery of magic, omens, silent wisdom, and vision in the night. And then the cycle of power is the nocturnal, year round.
Yeah,
So there's,
I have a omen and a vision in the night story. The park ranger at our local county park, which is quite large, it's 350 acres. His wife was due to deliver a child, and suddenly she was ready, and they ran to the car, got in the car, and started to drive out the park. And of course, the park was completely dark because there are no lights there in the night. And all of a sudden, a white owl flashed down in front of them, flying, and she thought it was an angel.
I can't believe that you're mentioning a white owl right now, because I was about to, just after you finish this, tell you that my grandfather used to always take me to a barn that he worked at where a white owl lived.
Nicholas,
Nice.
not to like,
This is getting too weird.
Nicholas, not to, I know that it's your boat and your car and your chariot, so you get to steer it, but clearly it's a spirit animal. I mean, watch for another interaction. That is a strange interaction to have with an owl. That's a wild animal. It didn't move. It was 3 feet away from you.
actually,
Yeah,
I don't
I
think
mean,
it's
believe me.
strange. To me, it harkens of your comfortability within yourself, because that, with you walking out, you're basically ninja human. You're not disturbing nature. You are your own nature. So I find it not to be so much a spirit animal as it's a totem, and we encounter totems very frequently. And if you notice an animal, it usually typically can be utilized as one.
Yeah, I mean, believe me, I don't want it to seem like I just don't want to make a comment. I wanted to share the experience, but I will just suffice to say that it was very meaningful for me, and I don't want to speculate or
And actually,
really
I have
go
reverence
into what I
reverence
think
for
it
that.
might or might not have meant.
Did it make you feel uncomfortable that I said that?
Actually, Samantha, actually,
No,
let's let him
want
be silent.
to elaborate.
Okay, you're right. Jordan, you're right. You're right.
I respect
Okay.
and actually have
No,
reverence
you're right,
for that. You
you're
want
right,
to
you're
keep
right,
your
you're right.
experience.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
My spirit animal is a squirrel.
Okay, we're moving on to Nick's other request, which was
true.
the Splendor Solus. So let me get that. Let me find that here. On my... Okay, so here I have the Splendor Solus on this group of 4. So here it is, and I will read it to you.
You said you think it's a stretch?
Well, I mean, in some way, I think all of the Splendor Solus deck, at least the major arcana, most of them are a stretch.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the sense that I would get. I want to get this deck myself and look at it, but obviously that was not the intention with the Splendor Solace, to make it work as a tarot deck. So they're definitely
and by the way, Nick, I think it's terrific on the minor arcana.
Yeah.
I'll just hold it up here. Wait a minute.
It's actually, I'm curious why you guys say this isn't holding up, because in the vessel is the pure youth and the utter demon from below, or the dragon. I mean, they're in one vessel together. What's the, I think, what pushback are you guys feeling from this that it's not working?
I'm just not seeing how you would use this in a divination, Jordan.
I was just saying.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine for a meditation, and after I stop this share, I'll show what I want to show about the minor arcana here, which is quite unique, and that alone is worth having the deck. But now I'm just going to read the definition here. So here's what they say. I am the young dragon, inner alchemy of justice, daughter of the lords of truth, ruler of balance. I teach the transformative truths of eternal justice and balance, that you may restore clarity and fairness in every part. I am artisan of the faithful intelligence, for I never betray truth. Through me, spiritual values are increased. All Mars Sun expert they have this hyphenated experiences. Okay, so all Mars Sun experiences in the four worlds are woven into my alchemical path. To the inward eye of justice, I am the full working of the liberating law, for I challenge ignorance and distortion of the eternal balance. Unflinching under a heavy Saturn sky, necessity's sword deals out life's labors and agedness. Yet I exalt Saturn, for through the greater law of rebirth, I reappear in the transformative flask, a new earth to be taught. My degree of heat will soften and melt the portions of earth that have become thick and hard-boiled, so you can receive the powers of fire and water as gifts of spirit and soul. Dear alchemist, my secret is the magic of appreciation, the liberating acknowledgement that all has its established place, beauty and enduringness, yet also its ever-changingness and becoming. Carefully weigh competing values, and you will become adept at adjustment and self-healing.
I see why.
And so that is Saturn over the top of this card.
Yeah, and Idris brought up a phenomenal point in the chat a little ways back when we just glossed over this card the first time. He said that Saturn is exalted in Libra. And I had forgotten about that until he had mentioned that, but it most certainly is. And that's one thing that I like about the builders of the Addendum deck, is that on the Justice card, you see, I mean, it's virtually the exact same, except the figure in that version of the card has a T cross on her chest, which in that entire deck has to do with the Tau cross, which is a symbol of Saturn. So it alludes to the same thing. And while I can understand why it seems like a stretch, it seems like it also makes more sense than it might have at first glance. And also Saturn was also always a god of agriculture, and we can see that going on in the background.
And I think that brings actually up to me how this is easily brought into divination in a reading, where all the trials and travails, the works around your daily life, how are they affecting the balance within?
Yeah. I mean, it's got a lot to do with time as well, and the test time, and I mean that's ever apparent in farming or gardening or anything like that, and the patience that it takes to go through that process. But I said I can understand it being difficult just in the general sense, because I think the Splendor Solace was made well before tarot was widely known, and I don't know, it might not be a coincidence that there are 22 images in the series, but I don't think it was intended to be used as a tarot. But
it might have been intended to be used for Kabbalah, though.
What I want to say is that can you show it one more time?
Yeah.
it reminds me of the strength deck, strength card, except it's like this one is in miniature. I just said miniature. No, that's pretentious. Miniature. It's miniature it's like an amniotic sac. They
It's
refer
in the vessel, yeah.
Yeah, that's how I think of it. I know it's a dragon. I know that I realize the difference is it's not, it's not holding the mouth open. It appears to be pouring something in there, and it also has a bellows or something. But it just, for me, if I was divining for myself, it would have to do something about my mind perceiving the strength card.
Yeah,
Maybe
well,
it's in the womb of the
bellows
strength
would be building up the fire, of course.
maybe, and then the water element as well, right?
Yeah.
I think for me it means something about justice is born in the womb of strength. It's born from the womb of strength.
And it's not lost on me that inner frame is resting on the top of the well.
Oh, yeah. And also I don't know, I think it's a kid, right? It's a child inside the
Yes.
vessel.
Yeah.
The thing that he's carrying in his hands, stuffing in the dragon, is actually a device that makes wind, like
Yeah, the bellows.
airs. So he's like feeding the dragon with air.
Yeah, he's
stoking the fire.
And
he's stoking the fire and also
yeah.
putting the fire out with the pouring the
Or
water.
just feeding the fire.
Water meaning
so the dragon can be bigger. I
It's
think
also
he's
like
trying to develop the dragon.
Yeah.
water means well, okay, well, this is where it gets chaotic, but kind of fun. Water can mean emotions, right? And air can mean thought. So there's the balance between the emotional feminine and thought, the rational male. And if you talk about him actually, I'm going to say she, because I believe in the description it described the child as a she. She is, let's say she's feeding the dragon. The dragon is also comparatively masculine, in my opinion, because it's more phallic than anyway. Point is they're feeding the dragon, and then aren't dragons pulling the chariot?
Oh, that's a good question.
The alchemical green lion, I believe.
Yes.
Green lion.
Which it's based it's based in green, and it has a crown, and the vessel is glass blower twisted closed at the top.
Wow, this is definitely, I think, related to strength. I mean, yes, strength.
So you basically also have the cornice at the top of the column capitals, and then the crown then becomes the cornice or crown molding, if you will, of self.
This is a Jordan divination, because Jordan, I feel like you would have a field day if you did a tarot reading for me from this deck. For me, it's so flowery, it's so ornate. There's so much that for me, I'm like, oh gosh, like when you read the description, Skip, I was like,
I'm just a novice, so it's way more than I could say in a divination.
Well, and I'd have to say on a card like this in a divination, one thing, whether you're just starting out or an old hand or have been old hand several times, cards like this, I always turn the card to my client and say, what does your eye go to first? Because we need to go into one part of the landscape, because there's too much to take in at one given time. It's literally, you have the whole town market, the bazaar, the fields being tilled. You have commerce down here at the bottom, and kegs that are turned over and used. And there's basically every aspect of a
no one is
life.
wearing a mask, so Corona will finish.
Yeah, no one's wearing a freaking mask.
That's nice, Idris. That's excellent.
Okay, let us. What are we going to do? I know what we're going to do. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something so that you can understand something else about this deck. Just a moment. I have to stop my cloaking
And if we have a couple of minutes towards the end.
All right. So here's a page of the Minor Arcana, and what you see here, Nick, is that this shows where the minor arcana, this particular one, is in the tree. Okay, and it's the way they show it is through the triangle. So in this case, it's the lower right one.
Yeah.
And what is this? This is the Alchemy of the Four of Swords, and they have color coding having to do with what the individual suits are. So there's four. I mean, all of the minor arcana pretty much look like this. They all have the Kabbalah in it, but they encircle the planet that it is with the triangle. The triangle represents what it is.
Yeah, so like they have the Four of Swords as being like Hesed and the Yetziratic world.
Right.
And
so,
the triangle being just 3-line triangle like the alchemical air?
Well, no, it's just like I if I'm not wrong here, I think it's like what I was talking about in my presentation of how as you go down the tree, there are 3 triads and then a final sphere that make up the 4.
All right, so let me show you one more thing here, which is this. This is the explanation of the color coding, right? And it also shows the cards that in every case it shows the card, the Rider-Waite card that goes with whatever the card in the deck is. And so it does do that in the book, in the description, for what it's worth. And so
well, that's a really good way that what I like about that book is that they transpose. It's like transposing musical works from one key to another or from one instrument to another. And it's when they put the Rider-Waite, it's helpful for a lot of people who are only familiar with that to then actually move into a different variety and see more fresh perspectives within what they were already seeing.
Yeah, it's growing on me, I have to say.
Is that Liz Green's book? Sorry, I just wanted to understand what that.
No, the author, the images are from Marie Angelo, and what else? What you want to do is go to splendorsolistarot.com, I think, and you can find out all about this deck. Or just do a Google search on it. But this so Deborah Backey is a tarot specialist and artistic director of Alchemia. For her work alongside digital designer and publisher Harvey Fenton to produce the Splendor Solis, the minor arcana and all the book illustrations in exquisite detail from my drafts. The 4 elemental colors were hand painted by Deborah in true alchemical fashion and with dew collected at dawn during the times of the ram and the bull. Let's see.
Can you repeat that last?
Sorry, did you say that the water on the illustrations was used? They used dew collected at dawn.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. I love it.
Right.
Fantastic.
Dew collected at dawn. Yeah, dew collected at dawn during the times of the ram and the bull.
It's probably, if I had to guess, that's probably a reference to manna or the heavenly manna. Like I don't know.
That fell from the sky.
Maybe they actually did do that, but I think that's a reference.
Well, I would think you would have to have astrologically you'd have to be in Aries or Taurus.
Yeah, it probably meant that it was constructed during the time period of Aries and Taurus.
It's highfalutin.
Okay, now one thing I want to show you. I think I might have mentioned it before, but I have Marie Angelo's signed it for me, and I have 77 of 78. I have number 77 of 78 of the signed and
Oh,
numbered
that's right.
books.
You've been showing that one before, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
2. The numerology is 2, yes? 77 plus 78 reduces to 2, I think.
14 and 15.
29.
29.
So it's 11.
Yeah.
It's 2.
2. Yeah, awesome.
I don't know what it means.
Yeah, it
All
means
right, I'm
2.
gonna go, guys. I'll catch you guys next week.
Okay, see you next week, Nick. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, bye-bye, Nick.
Okay.
I would like to read the plate description for this from the book Splendor's Solus, from Solomon Trismegistus, the alchemist who was teacher of Paracelsus, especially for this plate that they have used for the tarot. It's like one paragraph.
Are you trying to share a screen, Idris?
I cannot share a screen, but I can read the description of this this plate that is used for this tarot. It's like one paragraph. It's page 34. It says the fourth treatise of the means by which nature attains her ends. Aristotle in the book of Origin speaks, thus sun and man create a man, for the sun's force and spirit give life, and the process has to be gone through 7 times by means of the sun's heat. But as the philosophers in their work have to aid nature with art, so have they also to govern the heat according to the sun, so as to create the before mentioned stone, which as well has to undergo 7 processes. For such a work requires, now this specific tarot cards plate meaning is in this couple of sentences. Firstly, a heat powerful enough to soften and melt these parts of the earth that have become thick, hard, and baked, as mentioned by Socrates when he says that the holes and cracks of the earth will be open to receive the influence of fire and water. That was the description of this plate from that Splendor Solus book.
Okay.
Need a nap.
So that's the heating. Yeah, that's I appreciate that, Idris, because that's the heating, the inner heating. So then in this case, that would be the inner world or even the earth. And they'd often use the earth as a metaphor for self.
Yeah. Okay.
Also, maybe a big change tomorrow. Probably that'll be change because it spoke of transformation and changes of things that has become thick and stable.
Yeah.
I believe in us. I think we're not fools. This country, we're that's an illusion. We know better. You know.
Right.
10 of Cups.
Yeah, and Miles is making a number of comments here on the YouTube channel, and I really can't keep up with that, Miles, and also try to lead this discussion. And so I urge you to join the panel next week, if you don't mind.
Do we have 2 minutes or so to put the Mystery of Justice card back up? The whole guts of it was self as justice.
All right, let's see if I can find it, because these things are flying around my screen, and I have to, yeah, I have it here. Just a second.
Is there a phallus in there, or is it just me in the Mysterium?
It's just you. There's a sword.
Okay, I own it.
It's a sword. And actually, here's the thing. Every time you see a phallus,
the sword I was looking at. Never mind. It's fine.
Okay, Jordan, 2 minutes.
So the sword is in the middle instead of being on the side. To me, this is Mott, the heart weighed against the feather. This is the entry to the afterlife. There's also predator and prey as one, with the mouse and the snake looped together. You also then, the whole of it all is a face. So the heart in an eye and the feather in an eye. And then you have the third eye crown where the sword goes up through. So to me, in one image, this is justice of self. And as Jung would say, once you open within, you connect. And so this, to me, that was the guts of this, was putting, instead of duality, the oneness, the snake and the mouse as a being. And then the nose is right there over the instinctive animals. So this to me, again, was simply putting capital S self together as justice. And the sword was like the metronome ticker. And so it had to go straight up. And
Interesting. That's a great description.
You know, that's sneaky, Jordan, because I didn't even notice it was a face until you said that. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. And then the whole thing with the Tuscan red, the red browns or red orange or red browns that's dark on the top and the bottom, above and below, is then that also then becomes almost like medieval armor, helmet in a way that comes down with the nose plate down over the nose.
See.
And then the balance, they're both hung. They're both hung from this balance that's attached to by threads to the sword.
What's the symbol the two hands have out?
And that's then the symbol of just you reaching out into the world, but with no color, just all clean and pure, so that all the rest of this not being white, being Caucasian, white being of the purity. And you've noticed the sword, I think, is a little bit gray even, because it's been tempered. But the white is then your kind of oyster spit flesh, if you will.
No, but the finger position, is that representing love? Is that what it does?
I think that is love. Yeah, I think that is love with the pinky and the thumb.
A lot of children, a lot of kids, and like 20-something kids do that now. Do that with their hands.
Don't they use the index finger too, though?
Yeah, this is love. This is the symbol for love.
Oh,
The language of signs. But this is kind of like
the beast.
Hang loose.
Friendship. Make new friends, but keep the old. One is silver, the other is gold. I don't know if you guys know that one. That song, it has sign language with it. I remember it from childhood, but I don't remember all the things. I think it might, if you move it, I think it might have something to do with friendship.
And when I was designing, then to me, this was the strong opposable thumb and the weakest link, the pinky. So you get the two scales of strength in justice, but balanced one either side. So one is supporting the heart just in the same way as the other is in support of the feather. So you basically get a double pair of allies.
Right. And one of the descriptions of another symbol is this one. Okay, where you're trying to fix blame. We know somebody that likes to blame other people a lot, right? But when you do this, when you point at someone and you say I'm blaming that person, you have three fingers pointing back at you.
Back at you, right? Yeah.
Right.
And that's why, to me, also the hands are your palm. You see, in justice, you would see your palm. And this hand, though, this is not a threatening gesture, whereas that starts to have meaning. And this may mean something, but to me is, again, but you're right. Then here, three pointed back, but these aren't pointed anywhere except out into.
Right. So Raquel, this is love. Then this symbol means love.
Yeah.
Okay. And with palm out or palm in?
Out. I think it's. Okay. I think it's universal. Actually.
Yeah,
it's
it must be
for
palm
everybody.
out because it's opening your heart to someone.
I hope that's someone who doesn't read. Okay, so I was wrong. Never mind. Guys, what I said about friendship. I was just going to say it would be cool if a deaf person was watching this and could contribute in the conversation.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for showing that.
In palmistry, the three central fingers represent Jupiter, Saturn, and Sun. Jupiter is wisdom and the judge. Saturn is natural justice and the slowest things that is on earth, like matter. And the third finger, where we call it ring finger, is Sun or the government. So actually these three fingers joined together, it's a very clear symbol of justice, because the king is giving authority to the judge to do the justice, which is the middle finger, Saturn.
Right, like this, right?
Okay, so I just want to draw the attention of the audience here. Miles is saying, Skip, higher up in the chat on the YouTube channel, you missed our comments on hatred and desire, conspiracy. Okay, I don't know what that is, Miles, but I have to keep going because we're talking about we're talking about the Tarot tonight, so we can talk about that on Wednesday or something. But because I'm not quite following your point, and we have to go to the Tarot.
Thanks for showing that, Skip.
Yeah, I'm glad I did, because I'm glad I learned something about that card.
There's a deceptive simplicity. That's also why I wanted to pull it, because it's one of those, like Samantha said, oh, I didn't see the face. There's a lot of both hands going on in there, and I find there's a certain natural piece that hides things in a way that you might resonate with it, but you miss things. I mean, kind of snake butt bit. I mean, you'll be walk snake in the grass kind of thing. And I just like to outline that card specifically because I think it may be the most architecturally, structurally symbolic in my deck. That's overt. And
Yeah.
okay, what I have to say is that I'm running out of steam here, and we've been at it for 3 hours. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to close this by reading the definition of justice from the Starman Tarot, which is this one.
Oh, cool.
Okay, and I'm going to put the card back up on the screen. And unfortunately, we didn't get to all the cards that I had pulled out, but at least I showed them all earlier in the session, so people can go back and see them. But I think this book in the Starman deck is extremely well written. And Nicole, don't you just love this image?
It's a fantastic, because it's digital technology combined with artistic. It's just so beautifully layered and
photographed too. I mean, the woman's face is obviously photographic.
Yeah, it's really psychedelic. It's really psychedelic and sort of modern in that sense of it being like one of those dance parties.
Okay, so right. So here he's got an abbreviated description, which I'll read, and then I want to read the full description. But the abbreviated description is justice, the principle of consequences. You reap what you sow, reclaim your power, take an honest inventory of your life, acknowledge your successes and defeats. Reversed, feeling the injustice of the world, maintain your balance, take responsibility, have integrity, set things right. Okay, and so everyone will know that in the 12 steps of AA and all 12-step programs, one of the things that you have to do is set things right with people that you've hurt in some way. And because once you have entered the realm of the goddess of justice, you can't escape. She's in you, and you're never going to escape it. So you have to face it. And so here's what the Starman says: reap what I sow. I choose to walk the path of truth. And here's what he says: justice invites us to consider that we are the powerful orchestrators of our lives, and all of your thoughts, feelings, actions have led to the place you find yourself in right now. It brings to light the principle of consequences, the effects resulting from your actions. Are you reaping what you have sowed? Read karma. Okay, going on. In the card, a figure of a woman stands upright, strong, wild, unapologetic, a universal figure of mixed origins. She stands holding a brain in one hand and a heart in the other, portraying the balance of head and heart, thought and feeling. The world around her is teeming with life force. seething with nature, wild and mesmerizing. The card calls you to consider a balance of head and heart, logic and intuition, getting things done versus emotional connection and well-being. To live well, to work well, we need both, a dynamic interplay and feedback between the two, helping us to be efficient and effective and appreciative and purposeful. After all, emotion is a much more powerful driver of human behavior than after all, emotion is a much more powerful driver of human behavior than reason and logic alone. Justice asks you to take an honest inventory of your life and acknowledge your successes and defeats. You are the judge and jury because only you know in your heart of hearts if you have acted fairly toward yourself and others. If not, perhaps now is the time to regain integrity and make amends. Renewed power, autonomy, and freedom are revealed when we take full responsibility and give up making others wrong, life wrong. Remember, the finger of blame points one finger forward and three back towards ourselves. In blaming others and life itself for our circumstances, we miss the opportunity to take back the power we have given away. We miss deliberating on the actions that could catalyze an amazing new lease of life and instead play the victim stuck in suffering. Personal justice, then, is what you know is right, balanced in both head and heart. It calls you to powerfully question what you know at the deepest level is unjust. There are times in life when you must stand up for what is right for you, your own truth, and times when you must stand up for those who have no one to help them receive justice. And times when you have to stand up for those who have no one to help them to receive justice. This card is the great questioner, seeking out the truth and refusing to accept things that don't work or cause suffering and discomfort. It is the reclaiming of power from things which have been taken against your will and without your knowledge. It asks you bluntly, what do you actually stand for? What are you willing to take a stand for? We live in a society and abide by rules and regulations we may not always agree with, but have to navigate for fear of consequences. There are grave injustices in the world, escalating inequalities and marked polarities, especially in countries vulnerable to despots and warfare. While so many feel powerless in the face of their oppressors, the justice system in a democracy is designed to maintain order and bring balance, stability, and harmony to its peoples, despite contrasting ideas about what is fair and equitable. The court of law recognizes that there are fundamental inalienable rights that a person is entitled to simply because they are a human being. Here, justice calls you to recognize your personal opinion of justice within the mundane world may be filled with contradictions, and yet, despite this, you must rise up and be guided by the spiritual. Each action tips the balance either towards love or suffering, good and evil, right and wrong. Reversed, some form of injustice is at hand. Maintain your balance and equanimity, take responsibility, and look to your own integrity. Okay, that is a sermon for our president on the occasion of the 2020 election.
Fitting.
So I'd like to call it a halt here. I always prepare 3 times as much as we can possibly present, but the purpose is to demonstrate that these divine energies, which are invisible, So, and they're the same for everyone, everywhere, at all times, have been at all times, and have been agreed to by tarot card makers for 600 years. They're extremely powerful. And if you understand the tarot, you're going to understand not only yourself, but the world around you much better. And I really like this Justice card and the idea of, if you're pointing blame at somebody else, remember you've got 3 fingers pointing back at yourself. And boy, any other thoughts here before we go?
Very good.
Okay.
Well, I would say, Skip, too, with the 3 pointing back, too, there's their projection, where a lot of times when someone accuses someone, all they're doing is spitting out something they're uncomfortable with in themselves.
I'm mad because there's this lady, I went to get a prescription today from the pharmacy, and I ended up yelling at the pharmacist because I feel I was wronged. And the pharmacy closes in an hour on this side. So I've been wondering, like, I've been carrying it with me all day. I was so upset. I actually started crying even. I was yelling, but I was crying. I'm not even sharing all the details. I was just very upset. I had a prescription, but it wasn't on a formal pad. So I felt that she wasn't trusting me, that she's like, it has to be from a doctor. I was like, it is a doctor, you know? But yeah. And then I didn't know if I was being discriminated against, or they usually ask people that, but she said it was California law that we needed an actual more formal looking thing. But I know that wasn't true. I know that's not true. So it was just very frustrating. So now I think I owe her an amends, but I don't want to make.
Yeah, and Miles comments, anyone telling another you're going to hell has three fingers back at them. And Miles, I don't think I can say that to my daughter yet. I'm trying to find a way to bridge the gulf, but it's a wound that needs to be healed. And I'm actually working with Tim Holmes on a solution, or not a solution, but the start of a solution to that. Tim,
self-forgiveness comes up. You know, like there's this really big thing about self-forgiveness and how powerful working through that is. You know,
well, she was right. You know, she was right. She dropped me into hell for 10 years at that moment. But you know, who teaches a child to say that to a parent? So sometime, perhaps in March, I'll reveal to everyone what Tim and I cooked up as a solution. But I'm working it up to be a birthday present. So that doesn't come to February. And therefore, I'm not telling.
Well, I think I'm going to photograph the last several daily doodles when we get off, and pick 3 and send them your way.
Okay, I'm receiving a lot right now. So
it's hard to pick, I'll tell you.
It's gonna be a humdinger, Colleen. I can tell you that it's going to be an amazing session on
Saturdays and Sundays.
I'm very excited about it myself. And
yeah,
I want to thank you. It was wonderful to sit in tonight on your tarot class. I mean, it was a special evening anyway, but I so enjoyed the interaction between all of you, your respect for each other, your regard when if you would interrupt, you'd apologize. You know, it was just a very nice thing to watch the dynamics. And as I know very little about tarot, I learned a lot tonight. I can see how you can get very involved.
Yeah.
And how worthwhile.
Yep.
So thank you. It was really nice to be part of this.
And so next week our topic is the Hanged Man, which is a man hanging upside down. And it's one that you also will find interesting, perhaps. And there was a television series called Da Vinci's Demons, I think, which is a very, very powerful television series. But the very first episode of that series in season 1, the very first episode, many of the episodes are named after tarot cards, but the very first one is the Hanged Man. And so I just say that's an interesting amusement to see how they've used the tarot in that series, and also to how they used Da Vinci as a young man in the series is very interesting.
Skip,
Yeah.
ask you a question, and it's
Sure.
gonna be. I'm sorry because I know the answers are there, but I'm very tired, and I'd rather just ask you
Sure, go
instead of
ahead.
look up a syllabus and read an entire thing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know. I'm realizing in taking this class that that my Carl Jung knowledge is less than my tarot, and I think I want to up my Carl Jung game, because that's why we're here as well, right? So I was just wondering where you would I know things about Carl Jung, but I haven't actually read what he's written in depth. Where would you recommend that I start? And I'm totally okay with starting as the Fool at the very just base level.
Okay.
I'm really okay with that.
I'm going to give you a link
Thank you.
to lecture number 3, which was actually the third session of this group. I hope it'll come up. I guess I have to go into my back end just a minute.
Thank you.
But anyway, I gave a half-hour lecture on this point, and so rather than try to explain the whole thing to you, I'm going to give you a link. And keeping in mind that I think this is the 197th session of this reading group, but here is, let me put it on the chat, and I will put it on the YouTube chat as well.
Thank you. I
Okay,
wouldn't
so
expect you to reteach me the whole thing. I just meant if I were to read or watch something without hurting my head, given that I have an ear infection and a headache and all that stuff.
Yeah, all right. So there's the link on the chat.
Thank
you. And
I'm getting the song of her people from my dog. She's gonna have to go out. I'm gonna have to take off. Thank you so much for tonight. And Colleen, thank you and Skip for putting together the participation mystique. That it's done something amazing things with my own work. It has plenty of offshoots. So thank you so much.
Great. It's great. Thank
Yep.
you.
Good night, guys.
I've enjoyed it, but I must rest. I'm sorry.
It's
Peace.
addictive. Samantha, I would recommend The Undiscovered Self.
The
Yeah.
Undiscovered Self.
Yeah, that's one good one. There are several, but anyway, you can look at that lecture I gave. And Nicole and Raquel and Manuela, thank you very much for joining us from South America and Australia. We appreciate it. And
Thank
No worries. Thank you.
And Idris, thanks for coming in from Canada, and also to Miles.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Miles runs shotgun for us on the YouTube chat, so I appreciate that. So anyway.
Skip, I need to see like literally all your videos and all your classes now. There's so much, because participation mystique. I think I'd like to do that as well. Just trying to pace myself, Colleen. But
you can go on the YouTube channel and you can put things like that into the search and you'll find them, or just send me an email and ask me and I'll give you the links. But there's 1,100 more than 1,100 videos now in 5 years, and oh man, there must
the
be
information age. Will it drive us mad? No.
Well, yeah, maybe there's at least 3,000 hours worth of material there, I would suppose. Not to mention another, I don't know, several hundred hours of material in the advanced reading group, which
you're
is
an
not
Sorry,
is not on YouTube.
You're an example of someone who's using it for good, though. You know, this
Well,
technology.
one hopes. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I did one. Someday I'll tell you how I did a great thing in 2012 to influence the election, but it also influenced the 2016 election in a very negative way. So
Good night.
Well,
yeah, good night, Colleen. Nice to
good night,
see you.
Colleen. Nice to hear from you too.
See you
Goodbye.
Saturday. I'll chat with you before Saturday, Colleen.
Yes, definitely. Okay.
Peace.